Chapter 724. When Yun Jian mentioned Falcon Hall earlier, it meant that she was a member of Falcon Hall. Yi Kai and Gao Meihan's families had mixed feelings. After all, everyone knew of Falcon Hall's name. However, who would have thought that Zhang Jifan, who had been following behind Yun Jian, would mention the name New Cruz so bluntly? If Falcon Hall was a rising force that should not be provoked, then New Cruz was the representative of the new generation of large corporations. Now that New Cruz was well known throughout the country, New Cruz was undoubtedly a trendsetter in Country Z. New Cruz had also started planning to expand nationwide in the form of branches. The plan was still in progress, but Yun Jian had already arranged for Zhang Jifan to carry out the plan. At the same time, New Cruz had already begun to join the company nationwide and received a great response. It could be said that New Cruz was the rising star of the future. As for Yi Kai's family's Yi Group and Gao Meihan's Gao Group, there was no need to even think about it. They were incomparable to New Cruz. When Yun Jian mentioned Falcon Hall, the person at the registration counter was dumbfounded. In the end, Zhang Jifan, who looked like Yun Jian's follower, came forward and said New Cruz. The person at the registration counter was completely dumbfounded. The black pen in her hand fell to the ground with a clatter. The person at the registration counter quickly bent down to pick up the pen. Then she wrote New Cruz on the registration book in a panic. She then said to Yun Jian in a panic, "Apologies, I'm sorry. My apologies for my rudeness earlier. You may enter now." The lady at the registration counter was used to meeting all sorts of big shots. Naturally, she would not be intimidated by such a small matter. If Yun Jian did not look so young and her identity, including that of the middle-aged man behind her, were not so shocking, the lady at the registration counter would not be stunned at all. Yi Kai turned sideways to say something to Yun Jian, who was 2 meters away from him just as the lady at the registration counter finished her words. "Sister Jian, let's go in." Zhang Jifan spoke first to Yun Jian. "Yes." Yun Jian nodded. Then Yun Jian led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei through the entrance. The corners of Yi Kai's mouth twitched. He looked at Yun Jian's petite but alluring back, and his heart began to stir. Seeing this, Gao Meihan once again dug her fingernails into her flesh, but her face was trembling as she pulled out a very unnatural smile. "Calm down." Yu Xiaodan walked over and knocked on Yi Kai's head, then muttered to herself, "Stop pretending. A perfectly fine girl running off to mingle in the underworld, she's definitely not a good person. Kai, or you better stay away from her. Don't be bewitched." Saying that, Yu Xiaodan grabbed Gao Meihan's hand and patted it gently. Then she smiled at Gao Meihan and praised her in front of her family. "Our Meihan is the best. Not only is she beautiful, but she's also kind-hearted and generous." Yu Xiaodan even comforted herself as she spoke. In Yu Xiaodan's opinion, so what if Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's member? So what if Zhang Jifan was Yun Jian's man and was related to New Cruz? She was not Falcon Hall's boss, the woman called Slaying Luo. She was not the director of New Cruz. What was there to be smug about? Some people are just too self-righteous and think too highly of themselves. Yu Xiaodan didn't forget to add such a sentence. Chapter 725. Yu Xiaodan said that because she was indignant that Yun Jian had been more arrogant than her just now. Therefore, if Yu Xiaodan did not mock Yun Jian, she would feel even worse holding it in. This was only because Yu Xiaodan did not know Yun Jian's identity. If Yu Xiaodan knew Yun Jian's true identity, she would not dare to say such things even if she had the guts to do so. All right, let's go in." After listening to Yu Xiaodan's words, even Yu Xiaodan's own husband couldn't listen to it anymore. He hurriedly urged twice. Fine. Yu Xiaodan replied impatiently. Then, she turned to look at Gao Meihan with a benevolent face. The more Yu Xiaodan looked at Gao Meihan, the more she liked her. As they spoke, they followed Yun Jian through the entrance. When Yun Jian led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei into the venue, they were greeted by various dining tables that were more than 10 meters long. The lights in front of them lit up the place like it was daytime, while all sorts of desserts were laid out on the tables. There were many cutlery on the tables covered with white tablecloths, but it was obvious that the desserts and cutlery were expensive just by looking at them. There were wine bottles piled up on some of the tables. From a distance, it was obvious that the wine was expensive and they were all premium items from the olden days. It was obvious that one could enjoy any of the delicacies here for free once they entered the venue. This was a gathering of the upper class. Yun Jian went to a rectangular table and took a small Swiss roll from it, popping it into her mouth to chew and swallow. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei were hungry as well, standing in an inconspicuous corner with Yun Jian with the desserts in their hands. Sister Jian, this dessert is delicious. We should change the food in our sect. I'm sick of the communal meals. Duanlei, who was usually calm, could not help teasing. I've eaten the communal meals in your sect once too. TSK. That taste isn't even 1/100th of the dessert in my hand. Zhang Jifan teased with a chuckle. I'll send the chef here back to Longmen City another day then, Yun Jian teased with a smile. The venue was already filled with people and there were still people streaming in from outside. In comparison, Yun Jian, Zhang Jifan, and Duanlei did not have much of a presence. Moreover, most of the people there were already chatting with their acquaintances. Yun Jian did not have many acquaintances in Jia province. Be it New Cruz or Falcon Hall, she did not rely on the connections around her to develop them. All in all, there were not many people who knew her. Yun Jian. You're here. It was at this moment that a joyful voice came from the side. Yun Jian looked over. She did not even have to look. The person who could call her name with such a cheerful voice was undoubtedly Dai Qingqing. As expected, Dai Qingqing was holding a man in his 50s or 60s. An old man with graying hair on both sides of his temples was walking over. It was obvious that the old man had graying hair, but he was in high spirits. There was an air of arrogance between his brows that radiated around him, forcing those present to look at him directly in the eye. It was obvious that the old man was Dai Qingqing's grandfather, Kai Wenhao. Dai Qingqing followed her mother's surname and returned to the Kai family later, so she had a different surname from Kai Wenhao. Chapter 726. Dai Qingqing held onto Grandpa Kai's arm. Before they reached Yun Jian, Dai Qingqing said, Yun Jian, I've been looking for you for a long time. I've almost searched the entire place. I finally found you. With that, Dai Qingqing pulled Grandpa Kai to stand in front of Yun Jian. Yun Jian immediately sized up Dai Qingqing and Grandpa Kai. Grandpa Kai was dressed in formal attire and looked energetic. Although his hair had turned white, a person's aura would not change with his appearance. While Yun Jian was sizing up Grandpa Kai was sizing up Yun Jian as well. It was then that Yun Jian saw that Dai Qingqing had changed out of her school uniform and was now wearing a pink lace gown. The tube-top form-fitting evening gown accentuated Dai Qingqing's graceful figure to begin with. What do you think? Yun Jian, do I look good in this? When Dai Qingqing saw Yun Jian looking at her, she couldn't help but smile. She stood on the spot and twirled around while tugging at the hem of her dress. With that, she inched closer to Yun Jian and spoke intimately. It's beautiful. Yun Jian gave the best comment she could think of. Dai Qingqing smiled and jogged over to Yun Jian. She held Yun Jian's hand and introduced her to Grandpa Kai. Grandpa, this is a friend I just met. Her name is Yun Jian. With that, Dai Qingqing didn't forget to introduce her grandpa to Yun Jian. Yun Jian, this is my grandpa. I've mentioned it to you before. Grandpa is the person closest to me in this world. After Dai Qingqing's mother passed away, Grandpa Kai brought Dai Qingqing back to the Kai family. Although the Kai family didn't welcome Dai Qingqing, Grandpa Kai had always treated her like his own daughter. Even when it came to Kai Wenhui and Kai Wenling, Grandpa Kai favored Dai Qingqing more. Hello. Yun Jian turned to look at Grandpa Kai and nodded slightly to express her goodwill. Hello, little friend. Grandpa Kai looked at Yun Jian kindly and nodded. Although Grandpa Kai looked kind and amiable, he was the CEO of a well-known company in Z country. Although Grandpa Kai was old, he still had a tight grip on the company under his name. This was also the reason why Grandpa Kai treated Dai Qingqing so well. Grandpa Kai's descendants, including Dai Qingqing's biological father, had no choice but to listen to Grandpa Kai. He had power and influence and could get whatever he wanted. Others could only follow his orders. Ah! It's truly an honor for Mr. Ouyang to grace us with your presence. At this moment, a group of people walked into the backyard of the party. Among them, a short man with a ferocious face and a long and terrifying scar on his neck led a group of people out. This short man was walking together with a tall and thin man, but one of his eyes was covered by a single eye patch. He looked like a ferocious pirate. The short man whispered to the tall and skinny man with an eye patch. His words were full of flattery. Yun Jian saw it from afar. This short man with a terrifying scar on his neck was the boss of the leopard gang, Han Biao. People called him Brother Biao. As for the tall and thin man with a single eye patch who walked in front of Han Biao and was flattered by Han Biao, Yun Jian did not know him. However, judging from Han Biao's flattery, it was enough to tell that he wasn't an ordinary person. After all, Han Biao was the boss of the leopard gang, the biggest gang in Jia province. Chapter 727. Han Biao became the center of attention as soon as he showed up. Yun Jian followed the line of sight and accidentally saw Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, and others who had just come in not too far away. Yun Jian could also sense that Yi Kai was searching for her. Fortunately, Yun Jian's location was not easy to be found, so Yi Kai did not notice her. Yun Jian suppressed her disgust and turned to look at Han Biao and the single-eyed man called Mr. Ouyang in the distance. While Grandpa Kai was studying Han Biao and Mr. Ouyang in the distance, he also paid special attention to Yun Jian. Grandpa Kai frowned slightly when he saw Yun Jian looking into the distance. Dai Qingqing, on the other hand, did not notice that at all. She was holding Yun Jian's hand and enjoying desserts at the dining table. Mr. Ouyang's voice finally came from the distance. "Where are the people from Flying Passage? Why aren't they here yet?" Leopard Gang had hosted such a large-scale gathering last year and invited famous people from all over the world. In fact, there weren't many people who came to participate. It was said that famous people from all over the world were invited to participate, but in reality, there were only a few famous people who would really come. Mr. Ouyang's words shocked everyone present. What? Did Mr. Ouyang not know that Flying Passage, the former second strongest gang in Zhe Province, had been annihilated and replaced by Falcon Hall? In fact, Mr. Ouyang did not know about that. Or rather, the annihilation of a major gang like Flying Passage. It might cause a huge uproar in Zhe Province. However, it was nothing if it was spread across the country or the world. Therefore, the news did not spread too far. It was only natural that these bosses who had just arrived in Zhe Province did not hear about it. Han Biao's heart skipped a beat. He knew that Mr. Ouyang was friends with Flying Passage's boss. Now that he asked, Flying Passage was the former second strongest gang in Zhe Province. Although its annihilation had nothing to do with him, Han Biao could not help but inwardly gasp. Yun Jian, who was standing in the distance, naturally heard Mr. Ouyang's question. She raised her eyebrows. Mr. Ouyang didn't suspect anything when Han Biao didn't answer for a long time. Instead, he laughed and said, "Could it be that Flying Passage is late again, just like last year's gathering? Ah, Su Zhouzheng is so shameless. He was late again." As he spoke, Mr. Ouyang did not sense the gloomy atmosphere among the crowd. He continued to entertain himself by saying, "Su Zhoming will also be here today. He has been looking forward to it for a long time. Unfortunately, something big happened to the organization some time ago, so he couldn't leave. He didn't even make it back for the new year this year. Today he finally found the time to come back. How dare that brat Su Zhouzheng be late?" Mr. Ouyang said. He didn't take Han Biao seriously at all and laughed first. Su Zhou was the leader of the Sky Bridge Gang, and Su Zhoming was Su Zhouzheng's brother. Su Zhou had been personally killed by Yun Jian. Yun Jian listened to Mr. Ouyang's words at this time, and she could hear the spearhead. "Su Zhoming? Mr. Ouyang, this Su Zhoming can't be Su Zhouzheng's brother, Leopard Head, who is now working for kosher mercenaries, right?" Han Biao asked with a trembling voice. Su Zhouzheng and Flying Passage might not be that scary, but the scariest one was still Su Zhoming. Su Zhoming was Su Zhouzheng's brother, codenamed Leopard Head, who was now working for kosher mercenaries. Kosher mercenaries. When the people present suddenly heard this title, they were so frightened that they straightened their bodies. The brother of Flying Passage's leader, Su Zhouzheng, who was eliminated by Falcon Hall, was working for kosher mercenaries. And his brother didn't even know that his younger brother was dead. Heavens! Wouldn't Falcon Hall be done for then? Falcon Hall eliminated Flying Passage and killed Su Zhoming's brother, who was working for kosher mercenaries. Chapter 728. Yun Jian frowned slightly when she heard Han Biao's voice from afar. She pursed her lips without batting an eyelid. She was the one who killed Su Zhouzheng. She was also the one who annihilated Flying Passage. Su Zhouzheng had indeed used his brother to threaten her before he died. However, Yun Jian had ignored him and killed Su Zhouzheng without hesitation. As for Su Zhouzheng's brother, Su Zhoming, codenamed Leopard Head, he was indeed a member of the kosher mercenaries. Yun Jian had been busy annihilating the Inferno Ring and had completely forgotten about it. After the kosher mercenaries annihilated the Inferno Ring, they had requested for their members to isolate themselves from the outside world for a period of time, and to take over the Inferno Ring's forces as quickly as possible. This meant that the news of Su Zhouzheng's death had yet to reach his brother, Su Zhoming, who was codenamed Leopard Head in the kosher mercenaries. Yun Jian lowered her gaze. Just as she thought of this, she heard Mr. Ouyang laugh loudly from afar. He boasted to Han Biao, "That's right. My brother, Su Zhoming, is a member of the kosher mercenaries." Ah! As he spoke, Mr. Ouyang's face was filled with pride and arrogance that no one could look down on. Mr. Ouyang and Su Zhoming were old friends, and Su Zhoming was Su Zhojing's brother. Therefore, Su Zhojing was also friends with Mr. Ouyang using his brother's reputation. This was also why Su Zhojing's Flying Passage was the second strongest gang in Jia province. Therefore, when they heard Mr. Ouyang say that the brother of the dead Flying Passage boss was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, everyone present broke out in cold sweat for Falcon Hall. Speaking of which, two organizations were absolutely not to be trifled with in the underworld. They were not led by the Inhun group or the Kosha mercenaries. Therefore, the first thought in everyone's mind was, Falcon Hall is doomed. Grandpa, isn't that Flying Passage gang? Even Dai Qingqing could not help but ask Grandpa Kai after hearing about Flying Passage gang. Wasn't Falcon Hall already annihilated Flying Passage? You're just a child. Don't talk too much. Eat your food. Grandpa Kai was afraid that Dai Qingqing would say something wrong. In such a grand occasion, it was different from other places. If one said something wrong here, it was very likely to lead to a fatal disaster. Yinjian, I finally found you. At that moment, Yi Kai who brought his family in Gao Meihan's eyes. Yun, despite you Zayadli. Yun Jian's eyes darkened. She had felt Yi Kai's gaze just now and was disgusted, but she did not avoid it on purpose. The venue was only so big, so it was quite easy to find someone. At this moment, Mr. Ouyang's angry voice was heard from afar. What? Was annihilated. Oh, who killed Su Zhozheng? Who did it? Yun Jian did not hear what Han Biao said to Mr. Ouyang because Yi Kai's shouts came from the side. However, Yun Jian could tell from Han Biao's lips what he said to Mr. Ouyang. Su Zhozheng is dead. Flying Passage is annihilated. Mr. Ouyang's original aura coupled with his sudden outburst made everyone's heart skip a beat. Even Han Biao shrunk back. He knew very well how powerful Mr. Ouyang was. It's... Han Biao was about to mention Falcon Hall when Mr. Ouyang interrupted him. Chapter 729. After Mr. Ouyang's furious roar, most of the people present shifted their attention to Mr. Ouyang. Everyone at the scene panicked. Although they did not know who Mr. Ouyang was, they could tell from how the Leopard Gang's boss Han Biao treated Mr. Ouyang with such respect. This Mr. Ouyang was no ordinary person. Even Yi Kai and Gao Meihan, who were glaring at Yun Jian with hatred, shifted their attention to Mr. Ouyang in the distance without exception. At that moment, a crisp female voice was heard. Everyone present was naturally stunned. When they finally reacted, the whole place was in shock. It was especially so for the people standing beside her. Other than Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who were not surprised at all, Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, and Yu Xiaodan all turned their heads to look at Yun Jian in disbelief. Dai Qingqing and Grandpa Kai were also looking at Yun Jian in shock. Yun Jian, you. Dai Qingqing had just uttered the words when she was interrupted. Yun Jian was already walking toward Han Biao and Mr. Ouyang in front of everyone present. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei followed behind Yun Jian. The two of them followed Yun Jian like bodyguards protecting Yun Jian. For a moment, everyone's attention shifted to Yun Jian. Which one of the people who came to the party tonight did not dress up meticulously? What about Yun Jian? She was only wearing an ordinary outfit, but her delicate and beautiful face was eye-catching. In fact, many people had already looked at Yun Jian from the beginning, but most of them thought that Yun Jian came in with Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. After all, no one there would ever think that Yun Jian had entered the competition based on her own ability. After all, the invited companies and gangs were all famous in Jia province. At that moment, when Yun Jian spoke, apart from being shocked, most of the people present were in disbelief. Earlier, Mr. Ouyang had asked about the annihilation of Flying Passage and the murder of Su Zhozheng. Why did this little girl jump out and say, "It was me"? Was she the one who killed Su Zhozheng and destroyed Flying Passage? What kind of joke was this? Did she think she was a Russian? Yin Jian, come back. Don't talk nonsense. Although Yi Kai was terrified, he did not want Yun Jian to be implicated. Yi Kai thought that Yun Jian was spouting nonsense. Yi Kai had fallen in love with Yun Jian at first sight, and he had planned to confess his love to Yun Jian after the party. Now that he saw Yun Jian step out, he could not hold back. Yu Xiaodan, before Yi Kai rushed over to Yun Jian, my son, don't worry about her. That's the boss of Leopard Gang standing there." Then Yu Xiaodan scolded Yun Jian, but she said very softly, "This little b***tis, she's the one who's spouting nonsense. Serves her right for getting into trouble." Tui. Yu Xiaodan already had a problem with Yun Jian, and now that she saw Yun Jian walking over, she became even more agitated, and the words that came out of her mouth were not polite. Gao Meihan, who hated Yun Jian to the bone, smiled from the side. "Very well, it seemed that this little Yun Jian had a death wish, so she did not have to do anything. At that moment, Yun Jian was already in front of Han Biao and Mr. Ouyang like a king under the protection of Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. Chapter 730. This little girl actually dared to provoke Mr. Ouyang so blatantly. Everyone present was stunned and stood rooted to the ground. They were all shocked speechless by the scene in front of them. From how the leopard gang's boss Han Biao respectfully fawned over Mr. Ouyang, it could be seen that this Mr. Ouyang was definitely a big shot. Moreover, from Mr. Ouyang's tone, he seemed to be very familiar with the brother of the former Sky Bridge gang's boss, who was codenamed Leopard Head, who worked for the Kosha mercenaries. This was simply an alliance between the strong and the strong. Under such circumstances, Yun Jian actually ran in front of him like a madwoman and said that she killed his friend in front of him in a fit of anger. Is this little girl stupid? The people present didn't know Yun Jian's name, nor did they know her identity. However, as long as one had a mind of their own, they would think so. Where the hell did you come from, little girl? Do you want to die? Han Biao was slightly shorter than Yun Jian. He pointed at Yun Jian, thinking that Yun Jian was a little brat who came to cause trouble. Hurry up and throw her out. Han Biao was originally afraid of provoking Mr. Ouyang. Especially after Yun Jian said that, he was even more afraid. One had to know that this Mr. Ouyang was someone from an international arms family. Moreover, the arms family he belonged to was second only to the Cold Pavilion. Wait. Just as Han Biao was about to ask someone to throw Yun Jian out of the venue, a mature and sharp female voice was heard. As the mature female voice sounded, everyone present turned to look at the entrance. He saw a graceful and luxurious woman in a classic cheongsam walking in from the entrance. This woman looked to be at most in her 20s. She looked very young. Beside this woman was another woman who looked older than her in a low-cut evening gown. She was holding her hand. The two women who had suddenly appeared looked very similar, but in comparison, the younger woman who had spoken at the beginning and was dressed in a black cheongsam had a more refined temperament. This woman in a sexy black cheongsam was the one who spoke just now. At this moment, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and stared at the person beside the woman in the black cheongsam. Wasn't the person who followed the woman in the cheongsam in a dignified manner Kai Wenhui? Feeling that everyone's eyes were on her, Kai Wenhui suddenly raised her head proudly, showing off her arrogance. Yun Jian smiled. Needless to say, the graceful and luxurious woman in a sexy black qipao was Kai Wenhui's younger sister, Kai Wenling. At the same time, Kai Wenling was also the wife of the leopard gang's leader, Han Biao. Madam, why are you here? Didn't you say to stay at home? Although Han Biao was very arrogant outside in front of his own wife, Kai Wenling, he did not even dare to fart. The reason for this was because Kai Wenhui and Kai Wenling's family was prominent. To put it bluntly, the company founded by Grandpa Kai was famous throughout the Z Nation and held a high status. Another reason why Han Biao was so nervous about Kai Wenling was that Kai Wenling was already pregnant. However, it was only a month old and the fetus had not yet appeared. My sister is being bullied. How can I sit still at home? As Kai Wenling spoke, she glared fiercely at Yun Jian. Which blind fool dares to bully my wife's elder sister? Han Biao then shouted and ran to Kai Wenling's side. Han Biao was shorter than Yun Jian. Moreover, Kai Wenhui and Kai Wenling were both about 1.65 meters tall. Kai Wenling was even wearing a pair of high heels. When Han Biao and Kai Wenling stood together, the height difference was simply laughable. However, in this atmosphere no one dared to laugh or speak. Chapter 731. Kai Wenhui was a typical rich lady. Moreover, she was the wife of Longwen Group's CEO. She was protected by many people and had never been looked down upon. She was still angry about what had happened at the entrance of Xan Garden Hotel. Especially after knowing that Yun Jian would be attending tonight's gathering, she couldn't wait to teach Yun Jian a lesson. How could someone like Kai Wenhui who had never been taken advantage of take it? Knowing that Yun Jian would be attending tonight's gathering, she quickly called for her sister, Kai Wenling, to support her. After all, her sister, Kai Wenling, was half the hostess of tonight's gathering. Han Biao looked in the direction of Kai Wenhui's finger and saw Yun Jian, who had spoken so brazenly just now, standing right in front. Yun Jian crossed her arms in front of her chest and curled her lips. She didn't even look at Kai Wenhui. Yun Jian's gaze was fixed on Mr. Ouyang. Similarly, Mr. Ouyang didn't say anything. He was also looking at Yun Jian with a scrutinizing gaze. It's you again? Han Biao bellowed at Yun Jian at once when he heard her. Yun Jian's words earlier were a challenge to his authority. Now that he heard that Yun Jian had bullied his wife's sister, Han Biao wanted to kill Yun Jian immediately. Han Biao was the boss of Zhe Province's #1 gang, the Leopard Pack. Therefore his roar sent chills down everyone's spine. So what if I bullied her? I even killed Su Zhoujing and annihilated Flying Passage. Do you think I don't dare to bully her? Yun Jian sneered. However, in everyone's opinion, Yun Jian was definitely done for this time. Su Zhoujing is really dead. Flying Passage is really annihilated? Mr. Ouyang looked at Han Biao with a sinister expression. It seemed like he was asking his last question. What? My brother is dead? After Mr. Ouyang asked the last question, a loud voice suddenly came from the door. Everyone was stunned. Then a 1.9-meter tall man walked in from the door. His body was as strong as an ox and his muscles were taut. At first glance, one could tell that he was as strong as an ox. At this moment, the man heard an unbelievable piece of news. He stood upright at the entrance and his tall figure and rough words sent chills down the spines of everyone present. Needless to say, the voice belonged to Su Zhoujing's elder brother, Su Zhoming, who was rumored to be working for the kosher mercenaries. At this moment, Su Zhoming, who was standing at the door for the first time, had bloodshot eyes. He stared straight at the scene, his eyes emitting killing intent as if he wanted to kill everyone present. Facing such a murderous Su Zhoming, Han Biao's short body could not help but shudder violently. Afraid that he would be implicated, Han Biao threw Kai Wenwei's matter to the back of his mind. He looked at Su Zhoming and knew that this person was from the kosher mercenaries. He immediately felt a sense of respect for Su Zhoming. A few months ago, Flying Passage was indeed annihilated. Su Zhoujing was also killed by Falcon Hall. Han Biao said to Su Zhoming. Su Zhoming immediately howled madly when he heard that. Su Zhoming's eyes were bloodshot. He looked at Han Biao and asked, "Who killed my brother? Speak." Chapter 732. Yun Jian looked at Su Zhoming's wild face and spoke again without fear. Su Zhoujing failed to kill me with a sniper, but he severely injured my men from Falcon Hall. Since he dared to hire a sniper, he deserves to die. As she spoke, Yun Jian's eyes sharpened. Her face was calm. Although she had the pretty face of a young girl, Yun Jian's face was filled with endless coldness. If she had not intervened that day, Su Zetian would have died. She was very protective of her own people. Yun Jian admitted that to herself. Since Su Zhoujing dared to hire a sniper to assassinate her and even injured Su Zetian by mistake, he deserved to die. Then he would have to pay the price, death. Together with Flying Passage, they would all be buried with him. Yun Jian had never regretted killing Su Zhoujing. She never did anything she regretted. The words Falcon Hall were like an invisible palm that slapped everyone's heads at lightning speed. This young lady, is she from Falcon Hall? Furthermore, those who were able to attend the gathering were undoubtedly the strongest members of a gang or company. If that's the case, this young lady, your Falcon Hall's boss Rakshasa? Han Biao lived up to his name as the boss of Zhe Province's #1 gang. Although he was not good-looking and short, he had a sharp mind. Although it was hard to believe that Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's boss, Rakshasa. However, based on Yun Jian's behavior and what she said, it was hard to believe. If Han Biao still could not figure it out, then his position as the boss of Zhe Province's #1 gang would be wasted. Falcon Hall's boss? Rakshasa? When everyone heard Han Biao's words, it was as if they had been struck by lightning. They all stood rooted to the ground, dumbfounded. It was as if they had pitied and despised a beggar on the side of the road, but the next second, the beggar had donned the king's clothes and stood at a height that no one could reach. Those who thought Yun Jian was being unreasonable and foolishly admitted that she had killed Su Zhoujing and destroyed Flying Passage looked at Yun Jian in a different light. What? When Yu Xiaodan heard this from afar, she was so shocked that her eyeballs almost fell out. He suddenly found out that the person he had looked down on and even mocked just a moment ago had become the boss of the second strongest gang in Zhe Province in the next second. She was also the legendary boss of Falcon Hall, Rakshasa, who had charged into Flying Passage alone and killed Su Zhoujing in front of everyone. What kind of feeling was this? Moreover, she was about the same age as his son, but she was already the boss of the second gang in Zhe Province. No matter who it was, they would be frightened and terrified by this sudden feeling of terror. It wasn't just Yu Xiaodan, Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, Dai Qingqing and Grandpa Kai. All of them were terrified. For a moment, a sense of panic swept through everyone's body, giving people the feeling that they had been hit on the head with a taser. What do you think? Yun Jian sneered. At this moment, the expression on her face did not match the expression she should have at her age. Cold, arrogant like a king overlooking all living beings? How dare you kill my brother? You're the one who killed him. Go to hell. Go to hell. Ark. Su Zhoming, who was beside her, had already gone mad. He glared at Yun Jian. The murderous intent in his eyes was like a raging fire that could not be extinguished. Chapter 733. Someone sighed to the person beside him. His words were filled with distrust towards Yun Jian. Most of the people present knew about the existence of the Kosha mercenaries. It was the #1 mercenary group alongside the Inhun organization. In today's world, who would dare to provoke the Kosha mercenaries? Moreover, the Kosha mercenaries had just annihilated the Inferno Ring not long ago. Forget about those present daring to provoke such a terrifying mercenary group. Even Ten Panthers pack would not have the guts to challenge Wuxia mercenaries' authority. This was the difference in strength. How dare you kill my brother? I want you dead. Dead. Su Zhoming's eyes were bloodshot, making his entire eyeball look blood red. Everyone present was shocked by Su Zhoming's murderous aura. For a moment, those who were closer to Su Zhoming quickly hid in the corner. Brother Su Zhoming is your brother and mine. Now that he's dead, I will definitely avenge him. Mr. Ouyang looked at Yun Jian with hatred as he spoke to Su Zhoming. After Mr. Ouyang said that, he continued with a slightly arrogant tone, Brother Su, you're a member of the Kosha mercenaries. Together with the power of my mercenary family, I don't believe that we can't annihilate a mere Falcon Hall. Mr. Ouyang was purely trying to get on Su Zhoming's good side. After all, as a member of the Kosha mercenaries, Su Zhoming's status was higher than Mr. Ouyang's. Mr. Ouyang's words sounded like he was flaunting his status. However, the people present did not dare to say anything. It was not that they did not want to say anything, but they did not dare to. They could only whisper among themselves. I'm going to kill her today. I'm going to avenge my brother. Su Zhoming looked at Yun Jian. Suddenly he flipped his hands. 2 small knives with the edges pointed downward appeared in Su Zhoming's hands. Seeing this, everyone present retreated 3 feet back in fear. What kind of place was the Kosha mercenaries? It was a place where assassins and secret agents gathered. It could be said that most of the Kosha mercenaries were assassins or secret agents. As for Su Zhoming, although he joined halfway, he had been in Kosha mercenaries for a long time. How could he be weak? Seeing Su Zhoming like this, he was probably going to kill Yun Jian on the spot. Originally, some people had brought their children to the gathering today in order to make more connections. But no one would have thought that today's gathering would see blood. Was Su Zhoming going to kill Yun Jian in front of everyone? The corners of Yun Jian's mouth twitched slightly. She didn't panic at all. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who were standing behind Yun Jian, were a little flustered. However, the 2 of them looked ahead calmly, hiding their panic deep in their hearts. Sister Jian had her own confidence in doing so. Even at the last moment, they would choose to believe her unconditionally. Go to hell. I'll show you the capability of the Kosha mercenaries today. We're not something a boss of a small gang in Jia province like you can provoke. Su Zhoming held the knives with both hands with the edges pointed downward. He threatened, looking at Yun Jian. Yun Jian merely smirked. She had heard a real joke. What did he mean by showing her the true capability of the Kosha mercenaries? The Kosha mercenaries won't accept trash like you, so you must die here today. Yun Jian sneered and changed her demeanor abruptly as she spoke in a cold tone. Chapter 734. Trash? Yun Jian actually called Su Zhoming, who was able to join the Kosha mercenaries, trash? Everyone present was extremely shocked. In the distance, Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, and the others had been watching this scene with astonishment since the beginning. If Yun Jian were anyone else present, they would probably be trembling in fear and would even kneel in front of Su Zhoming. But who was Yun Jian? Su Zhoming would only have one outcome if he encountered her, and that was death. Su Zhoming held 2 blades in each hand, but he was not in a hurry to rush forward. After so many years in the Kosha mercenaries, Su Zhoming was no longer a reckless person. Although the hatred for his brother's death was irreconcilable, Su Zhoming was also a sly old fox. Yun Jian, who could destroy his brother's flying passage, was definitely not an ordinary person. Su Zhoming could guarantee that if he were to fight with Yun Jian alone, it would be hard to tell if he would win or lose. Under such circumstances, all Su Zhoming could do was wait. This time he did not return to Jia province alone. He also invited a few big shots from the Kosha mercenaries. Among them, one of them was a big shot in the top 100 of the Kosha mercenaries. He guessed that those big shots had not arrived yet, but as long as he waited a little longer when those big shots arrived, he would definitely let Yun Jian know how to write the word death. Since she had provoked him, a big shot from the kosher mercenaries, this little girl could only die. Not to mention that she had killed his brother. Seeing that Su Zhoming did not make a move, Yun Jian's eyes moved slightly. Brother Su, go. With my strength and yours, do you think we can't kill her? Today I will let her blood splatter on the spot. I will avenge brother Su Zhouzhen. Mr. Ouyang said fearlessly. But in reality Mr. Ouyang was just a man who only knew how to talk and not act. Mr. Ouyang would never hate Yun Jian for Su Zhouzhen's death. All his previous hatred was just an act. The purpose of Mr. Ouyang's actions was only to please Su Zhoming. After all, Su Zhoming was a member of kosher mercenaries. Brother Ouyang, there's no hurry. Su Zhoming's eyes were dark as he reached out to stop Mr. Ouyang. His eyes were looking at Yun Jian from the corner of his eyes. He was so close to cutting Yun Jian into 1,000 pieces. Is this the place? At this moment, a bold voice suddenly came from the door. Following that, a group of burly and stocky men walked in casually from outside the door. When Su Zhoming heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. His reinforcements had arrived. Then Su Zhoming hurriedly turned around. Yun Jian watched Su Zhoming's series of actions. She simply crossed her arms in front of her chest and stood there quietly watching. The first person to enter was a burly man. The most striking feature of these people was that they all had a skull mark on their arms. This was the mark of the kosher mercenaries. When Su Zhoming saw this, he went up and said to the man standing at the front, Senior Xiong Wei, you're here. Yun Jian's slightly squinted eyes suddenly relaxed. She was really familiar with these people who had just entered. Weren't these people the kosher mercenaries that she met in the ancient tomb the last time she went to the tomb? The person leading them was Xiong Wei. At this moment he glanced at Su Zhoming indifferently. Then, his gaze lightly swept across the crowd and suddenly swept across Yun Jian's figure. In the next second, Xiong Wei was stunned and then strode towards Yun Jian. In front of everyone present, Xiong Wei lowered his head towards Yun Jian and said respectfully, why are you here? One of Xiong Wei's subordinates was an old friend of Su Zhoming. Since they had nothing to do this time, they invited everyone to country Zhejiang province for a visit. In the end, Xiong Wei did not expect to meet Yun Jian here, who he had met in the tomb the last time. Chapter 735. Bear. Might was as excited as if he had met his idol. There was an unwritten rule in the kosher mercenaries. There was a ranking list in the organization. Everyone would be on the list and be ranked. It was said that Bear Might was ranked 99. Being able to be in the top 100 of the kosher mercenaries was already quite impressive. As for Su Zhoming, he was in the top 1,000 of the kosher mercenaries. To Su Zhoming it was already an honor to be able to meet Bear Might, who was ranked 99 in the kosher mercenaries ranking list. Thus it was not hard to imagine Bear Might's surprise when he saw Yun Jian again. Yun Jian's strength and ability were enough to make Bear Might and the others completely submit to her. However, she also had another identity. She was the boss of the kosher mercenaries. The boss of the kosher mercenaries. This was a person that Bear Might would never have thought of meeting in the past. However, during the trip to the ancient tomb, Bear Might had followed Yun Jian around. However, in the end, Yun Jian had robbed their off-road vehicle. Of course, to be robbed by the boss of the kosher mercenaries was something that others could not get even if they wanted it. At this moment Bear Might was meeting Yun Jian again. It was like a great honor for him. The people present were all discerning people. Everyone was watching with their eyes wide open. Who was Su Zhoming? He was a member of the kosher mercenaries. For Su Zhoming to lower himself to flatter Bear Might was enough to show that Bear Might's status was higher than Su Zhoming's. But what was the situation now? Why did Bear Might, who had a higher status than Su Zhoming, speak to Yun Jian in such a respectful tone? The word, sir, was enough to show Bear Might's respect for Yun Jian. I'm here for a party. Yun Jian brushed her hair behind her ear and returned a casual smile to Bear Might. She didn't expect to meet them here by coincidence. As long as you're happy. Bear Might said to Yun Jian very respectfully. Su Zhoming and Mr. Ouyang as well as everyone present were dumbfounded by this turn of events. What was going on? Senior Xiong Wei, do you know this damned woman? Su Zhoming pointed at Yun Jian and asked Xiong Wei in surprise. Perhaps because Su Zhoming's tone revealed too much disrespect for Yun Jian, Bear Might frowned and slapped Su Zhoming, who was over 1.9 meters tall. Scram. Is she someone you can insult? When Xiong Wei heard that Su Zhoming was disrespectful to Yun Jian, he punched Su Zhoming to the ground. Then Xiongwei took out a Browning pistol from his waist and pointed it at Su Zhoming. "You are courting death in front of me, bear," Might said, and was about to shoot Su Zhoming. Su Zhoming dared to insult his Kosha mercenaries' boss to his face? This was simply a slap to the Kosha mercenaries' face in front of others. Don't. We are all on the same side. Seeing that bear Might was really going to kill Su Zhoming, one of Su Zhoming's old acquaintances quickly ran out to stop Bear. Might. Scram. Bear. Might was furious. Su Zhoming was humiliated in front of everyone, so he was unwilling to accept it. Especially a man like him who was insulted like this. Moreover, it seemed that Bear Might and the others would not help him. His brother Su Zhojing could not die in vain. Hence, when Su Zhoming stood up, he whipped out 2 small knives with the edges facing downward and charged at Yun Jian. The people present were already shocked by the scene just now. At this moment, Su Zhoming suddenly grabbed 2 knives and rushed toward Yun Jian. This scene made everyone present unable to react. Yun Jian. Dai Qingqing could not help but shout from afar. At this moment Yun Jian stood still. She narrowed her eyes and swung her hand from her pocket at Su Zhoming. A butterfly knife glittering with silver light flew out from her hand. When everyone finally reacted. Chapter 736. Su Zhoming, who was holding 2 small knives with the blades facing downward, looked up at once when he sensed danger and saw the butterfly knives that Yun Jian had flung at him. "Leopard head, come back. Don't be stupid." Bear Might's subordinate, who was Su Zhojing's old friend, shouted at Su Zhoming. Leopard head was Su Zhoming's code name. Although Bear Might didn't tell his subordinates that Yun Jian was the boss of the Kosha mercenaries, the subordinates who came with Bear Might today had met Yun Jian in the ancient tomb. They had all seen Yun Jian's strength. Forget Su Zhoming, Yun Jian's ability to enter the cave that no one except C.E. Adam and Mo Sen had entered, the ancient catacomb where the arrow traps were circulating. Even if everyone here added together, they might not be as strong as Yun Jian. That was why this old friend of Su Zhoming's called out. However, Su Zhoming was already blinded by hatred. His brother was dead. Even if he died, he wanted this woman to be buried with him. Su Zhoming grabbed the 2 daggers that were facing downwards and dodged to the side under everyone's shocked and fearful gazes as they retreated in large strides. In spite of it, Yun Jian's butterfly knife was too fast and powerful. Although Su Zhoming managed to dodge the fatal blow, he was still stabbed in his left shoulder by the blade. Su Zhoming was only a meter away from Yun Jian. However, Su Zhoming's hands that were holding the 2 knives, which were about to rush towards Yun Jian, clearly paused. Other than the gangsters, there were also businessmen and politicians present. There were even many people who brought their own children here. However, when everyone saw the sudden change in front of them, they were all dumbfounded. There was blood. There was really blood. Yun Jian suddenly stabbed the butterfly knife into Su Zhoming's left shoulder. Her speed was too fast and too fierce. Even Su Zhoming, who was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, was stabbed in the shoulder by Yun Jian. He couldn't dodge her attack. Die. Because he was stabbed in the left shoulder, Su Zhoming's reaction was slow for a moment. Then he immediately reacted and madly roared at Yun Jian while holding 2 small knives. Everyone present gasped. Dai Qingqing, who was standing in the distance, would have rushed over if Grandpa Kai hadn't held her back. However, Su Zhoming, who had been stabbed in the left shoulder, was slightly stunned. To Yun Jian, killing him was enough. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. In the next second, she lightly ran forward 2 steps under everyone's gaze. Her pair of slender legs were wrapped in long pants, but it unconsciously gave people a sense of beauty. Just as everyone was mesmerized by her beauty, Yun Jian bent her beautiful legs. She lightly stepped on her small feet and dodged to Su Zhoming's left. From the moment Su Zhoming rushed towards Yun Jian with the 2 knives in his hands, to the moment Yun Jian stabbed Su Zhoming's left shoulder with the knife, until now only 10 seconds had passed. However, between experts, many things could happen in 10 seconds. In the blink of an eye, Yun Jian was 1 step ahead of Su Zhoming. She grabbed the butterfly knife that was stabbed into Su Zhoming's left shoulder. Everyone's eyelids twitched violently. A bad premonition swept through everyone's body. In the next second, they saw Yun Jian grab the butterfly knife that was already stabbed into Su Zhoming's left shoulder. She held the butterfly knife and slashed it along Su Zhoming's left shoulder, from his left shoulder to his heart. Before Su Zhoming could react, the area from his left shoulder to his heart had already been dissected along the way. In the next second, Su Zhoming's eyes widened as he slowly fell backwards. When everyone saw such a bloody scene, they were so frightened that all the hairs on their bodies stood on end. Yun Jian, she actually dared to kill a member of the kosher mercenaries. Chapter 737. Su Zhoming didn't even realize that he was going to die in Yun Jian's hands. However, everyone present saw it clearly. How old was this little girl? She was at most 16 or 17 years old. But the strength she just displayed couldn't be described with the word, shocking. She was actually holding the handle of the butterfly knife that was stuck in Su Zhoming's left shoulder. She pressed the butterfly knife against Su Zhoming's left shoulder, and as if she was cutting tofu, she continuously cut from his left shoulder to his heart. The knife directly stabbed into Su Zhoming's body, from his left shoulder to his heart, and then fiercely stabbed in. Many of the people present were the gang leaders of various cities. Zhe province was a big province and there were many cities. Even though these gang leaders had experienced a lot of ups and downs, they had never seen such a horrifying technique. Holding a knife and cutting across a person's body, and then fiercely stabbing into the person's heart. Yun Jian's technique was terrifying. Even if these gang leaders saw it, they couldn't help but feel terrified. No one present dared to try such a bloody technique. Even these gang leaders who were used to bloody scenes felt terrified. Yun Jian, on the other hand, could kill Su Zhoming so cruelly without even batting an eyelid. Someone's dead. Someone's dead. Someone was already so frightened that they cried out. At this moment, Yun Jian had already pulled out the butterfly knife from the heart of the already dead Su Zhoming. Then she calmly took out a pack of napkins from her trouser pocket, and gently wiped the blood off the butterfly knife. She. Yu Xiaodan was so scared that she screamed out loud, and then she was afraid that Yun Jian would see her, so she desperately covered her mouth with her hand, and her eyes widened until they couldn't be opened anymore. Yun Jian actually killed someone. And most importantly, her method of killing was so cruel. Once she thought about how she used disdainful words to ridicule and attack Yun Jian, Yu Xiaodan felt that she was done for. Yi Kai stared at Yun Jian in disbelief as well. He could not imagine that such a beautiful girl could be fearless when it came to killing. This reminded Yi Kai and Gao Meihan of what Yun Jian had said at the skating rink. Not only can I do this, I can also kill you. Do you believe me? If Yi Kai and Gao Meihan did not take it seriously when Yun Jian said that to them back then, the feeling Yun Jian gave them now was, you're the one who's going to make a living. She really knew how to kill. She actually dared. Moreover, the people she killed were not ordinary people. They were kosher mercenaries. For a moment, screams could be heard everywhere. Other than Yi Kai and Gao Meihan, there were also Dai Qingqing, Grandpa Kai, Han Biao, Kai Wenwei, Kai Wenling, and Mr. Ouyang standing in the distance. No one looked at Yun Jian with normal eyes. The scene immediately became chaotic. Bang bang bang. At this moment Bear Might suddenly raised his Browning pistol and fired 3 shots at the ceiling. After the 3 shots, the scene instantly quieted down. If you keep screaming, you'll die right now. Bear Might roared in a rather domineering manner. Everyone was silent. Do you have anything else to say? After speaking, Bear Might turned his head and looked at Yun Jian. Chapter 738. Go back and tell Snake Lizard to remove Su Zhoming's name from kosher mercenaries. From today onwards, Su Zhoming will disappear from this world forever. Yun Jian looked sideways at Bear Might as she spoke, but the words that came out of her mouth were awe-inspiring. In fact, the skills that Yun Jian had just displayed had shocked Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. However, what Yun Jian had just said had shocked and bewildered everyone present. Remove Su Zhoming's name from kosher mercenaries? Who did she think she was? How could she have the ability to speak in kosher mercenaries? However, due to Yun Jian's strength, no one present dared to take her words lightly. Yes. Bear Might nodded after hearing her words. At this moment only Bear Might knew the reason. Why could Yun Jian speak in kosher mercenaries? Of course it was because Yun Jian was the boss of kosher mercenaries. The entire kosher mercenaries belonged to her. What was a mere Su Zhoming to her? Snake? Lizard? Isn't Snake Lizard the subordinate of the boss of kosher mercenaries? She's also the leader of kosher mercenaries. Just when everyone was puzzled, a weak voice was heard. When they first heard this voice, everyone present was slightly stunned. Those who were in the underworld would naturally recognize this. However, after this person spoke, there was still an uproar in the crowd. Mr. Ouyang, who had been speaking up for Su Zhoming, did not even dare to make a sound. At this moment, everyone present was thinking, if Yun Jian can even order the leader of kosher mercenaries, then she must be Just when everyone present was thinking of this, Yun Jian slightly lifted her feet and walked towards Su Zhoming's corpse. Then, as if she knew what everyone present was thinking, she slowly took out a small airtight container from her trouser pocket. This airtight container was covered with a layer of something, as if it was wrapped to prevent the body fluid from flowing out of the container. Everyone's surprise was thrown to the back of their minds by Yun Jian's actions. "Don't even think about guessing my identity." At this moment Yun Jian's voice was heard again. She curled her lips and squinted her eyes slightly. Her beautiful and delicate face was very delicate. At the same time she took out the airtight container from the transparent bag. This airtight container was very small, just enough for Yun Jian to hold it in her palm. She opened the airtight container's lid and said, "Because I will be angry." Yun Jian's voice was strange. Yun's voice's strange voice. At this moment Shiza's mouth. Ants. Just as the liquid in the sealed container spilled out and dripped onto Su Zhoming, Yun Jian's voice rang again. "Once I get angry, this is what happens to all of you." At the end Yun Jian's words were slightly heavier. In front of everyone's eyes, Su Zhoming's body was covered by the container's liquid. In just a few seconds Su Zhoming's body was instantly sucked dry and turned into a pool of blood. In the end not even his bones could be seen. Silence. It was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. A living person turned into a pool of blood in front of everyone's eyes. That was not all, coupled with Yun Jian's strange words. Those with better endurance might still be able to watch, but for people like Yu Xiaodan she was so scared that her whole body was trembling. She even had the urge to pee. Chapter 739. Yi Kai and Gao Meihan shuddered again. Especially Gao Meihan. She had initially thought that Yun Jian was going to snatch Yi Kai away from her, so she was already plotting how to deal with Yun Jian. But what about Yun Jian? She was a devil who killed without batting an eyelid. Yes, she was a devil. She turned a corpse into a puddle of blood with just a small bottle of potion. What if the potion accidentally came into contact with his skin? Everyone present could not believe what they had just witnessed. Yun Jian, who stood a distance away, smirked. She kept her lips curled up and the slight curve of her lips gave the people present quite a shock. But, just as everyone was deep in thought, the sealed container in Yun Jian's hand fell to the ground. The sealed container was made of a special material, so it would not shatter when it fell to the ground. However, when the crowd recalled that the liquid inside would turn a person into a puddle of blood once it touched their skin, they could not help but shudder. No one had ever seen such a thing in the market. Some of them would never see it in their entire lives. This was because it was invented by Qin Elder Qin Yu invented corpse-dissolving water? One of Bear Mite's underlings who was standing next to him asked in horror when he saw Yun Jian turning Su Zhoming into a puddle of blood with the corpse-dissolving water. Qin Yu? Is she the legendary youngest elder of Wuxia mercenaries, Lady Venom? Someone asked in bewilderment. Qin Yu was prominent in the Wuxia mercenaries. Other than the boss, Yun Jian, she was the youngest elder of Wuxia mercenaries. Snake, lizard and tiger. Leopard were elders as well, but they were much older than Qin Yu. Qin Yu's code name was Lady Venom. Her real name was Qin Yu. This was something everyone knew. I remember that Lady Venom is the personal subordinate of the Wuxia mercenaries boss. The poison she invented is the best in the world. Until now no one can compare to her. Also, the things that Venom Lady developed are only used on the bosses of the Wuxia mercenaries. The man hurriedly shared his knowledge with him. Wuxia mercenaries boss? Yun Jian? A cloud of doubt flashed through the minds of everyone present. Elder Qin Yu has always been a friendly person. She's willing to provide us with any poison that she's developed. Bear Mite knew that Yun Jian did not want to reveal her identity, so he immediately defended Yun Jian. The bottle of medicine in Yun Jian's hand was indeed given to her by Qin Yu. She had even asked for a few bottles back then. Although Qin Yu claimed that Yun Jian had taken away her precious poison, the truth was that she had given Yun Jian 10 bottles in one go. 10 bottles of this corpse-dissolving water was a sky-high price in the underworld. This was because no one had ever developed a corpse-dissolving water that could turn a person into a puddle of blood without leaving any traces behind. Qin Yu, on the other hand, could. She had developed it. However, Qin Yu was never stingy when it came to giving things to Yun Jian. The crowd let it go after hearing Bear Mite's words. After all, if Yun Jian was really the boss of the Wuxia mercenaries, why would she be the boss of Zhe Province's second-ranked mafia group? Was this not more unbelievable than the sky raining blood? After dealing with Su Zhoming, Yun Jian turned around and looked straight at Han Biao. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Yun Jin walked step by step toward Han Biao. What are you doing? Before Han Biao could speak, Kai Wenwei, who was standing next to him, screamed in fear. Although Han Biao was panicking inwardly since he had dealt with Yun Jin in such a manner earlier, he appeared unfazed. Chapter 740. Everyone thought that Yun Jin was going to avenge herself. After all, Kai Wenwei had pointed at Yun Jin and complained to Han Biao in front of everyone. As for Han Biao's roar at Yun Jin, anyone who wasn't stupid would be able to tell from his tone of voice. If Yun Jin really wanted to take revenge on Han Biao for insulting her just now, the people present wouldn't be so shocked. After all, Yun Jin was just a young girl. At her age, she was already at a more vengeful age. It was normal for her to get angry when others said a few words about her. However, what Yun Jin wanted wasn't revenge, but the Leopard's Gang? If Yun Jin had asked Han Biao for the Leopard's Gang from the beginning, no one would have taken her seriously even if she was Falcon Hall's Rakshasa. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, although Falcon Hall was powerful, there was still a certain distance between them and the Leopard's Gang. If Falcon Hall was a rising star, then the Leopard's Gang was a well-established gang with a solid foundation. However, after the current situation, everyone present changed their view of Yun Jin. She even knew Elder Snake Lizard and Elder Qin Yu from the Kosha mercenaries. Then, her future achievements were absolutely immeasurable. Han Biao didn't expect Yun Jin to ask for the Leopard's Gang from him. He swallowed hard and then said to Yun Jin, "What's the second choice?" Yun Jin didn't intend to give him a chance to refuse. Yun Jin's deep black eyes flashed. The corner of her lips curled up slightly, and arrogant words came out of her beautiful throat. The second choice. She purposely stalled for a moment before Yun Jin gripped the butterfly knife in her palm. In the next second, the knife in her hand was twirled twice in a nimble motion. Then Yun Jin pulled out a smile. She looked at Han Biao and said, "If I kill you, the Leopard's Gang will still be mine." What a big tone. Everyone present could not help but think so. However, because of Yun Jin's previous performance, no one doubted the authenticity of Yun Jin's words. Moreover, Yun Jin was very familiar with the elders of the Kosha mercenaries. The position of the elders in the Kosha mercenaries was second only to the boss of the Kosha mercenaries. Under the suppression of such a situation, everyone present had no choice but to submit. At this moment, Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who had been following Yun Jin the whole way, were also shocked. However, in contrast, although the two of them were surprised, they did not reveal their surprise on their faces. In the face of Yun Jin's overbearing aura, Han Biao was finally convinced. All right. Other than agreeing under such circumstances, what else could Han Biao do? Although Han Biao's looks were unsatisfactory and he was short, he had a clever mind. Although he did not look so powerful on the surface, since he could become the boss of Zhe Province's #1 gang and sit in this position for so many years, he must have his own strong side. Moreover, Kai Wenling was so beautiful, and Kai Wenling's family background was even more outstanding than Han Biao's gang. Han Biao being able to marry Kai Wenling was like a fresh flower inserted in cow dung. Since he was able to marry Kai Wenling, it was enough to see that he was a powerful person. Happy cooperation. Yun Jin narrowed her eyes slightly and said these words in a relaxed manner. All the witnesses present were shocked by Yun Jin's actions. Chapter 741. Han Biao rolled his eyes in his heart, but he still said, "Happy working with you." How was that a happy working with you? Han Biao wanted to die at that moment. The reason why Han Biao agreed to hand over the Leopard Gang to Yun Jin so easily was because, if he did not agree, Yun Jin would kill him. That was one of the reasons. The biggest reason was that he had heard that Yun Jin had used a similar method to take Falcon Hall under her wing. After Dragon Head Gang was taken under Yun Jin's wing, it became the current Falcon Hall. Yun Jin herself used the name of Falcon Hall's boss, but handed over all the gang's affairs to Su Zetian. If Yun Jin wanted to kick him out of the gang after taking over the gang, Han Biao would consider whether to compromise or not. According to the information Han Biao received, Yun Jin immediately changed the name of Dragon Head Gang to Falcon Hall after she took over. As for Yun Jin, she did not care about the gang's affairs at all. She was merely a figurehead at best. What moved Han Biao even more was that ever since Yun Jin led Falcon Hall, she had single-handedly destroyed the Sky Bridge Gang in less than half a year. She even took over the Sky Bridge Gang in the shortest time possible. This made Dragon Head Gang, which was the current Falcon Hall, one of the last few gangs in Zhe Province, quickly become the second gang in Zhe Province. It was only today that Han Biao realized that Yun Jian's strength was so strong because she knew the Kosha mercenaries' elders. Those were the elders who could directly replace the Kosha mercenaries' boss and directly dispatch the Kosha mercenaries. The facts proved that if Han Biao were to fight with Yun Jian, he would admit that he was no match for her just based on the fact that Yun Jian knew the Kosha mercenaries. Therefore he might as well go all the way and agree to hand the leopard gang over to Yun Jian. Or perhaps, after becoming Yun Jian's subordinate, she could lead the Panthers gang to greater heights and become the #1 gang in the country, or even step onto the international stage. It had to be said that Han Biao's heart was faintly stirred. Moreover, as long as Han Biao joined an organization and became a member, he would be a loyal and devoted person. His greatest strength was that he would never betray the people in his own organization. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who were standing not far away, were so shocked that they couldn't control themselves. Duan Lei in particular had gone through a long journey to make a name for himself in Longmen City with Su Zetian and a group of brothers. But what about Yun Jian? How long had it been? She had taken over the leopard gang without expending a single soldier? Yun Jian's appetite was indeed huge. That was what everyone present thought. But at the same time they couldn't help but add a sentence in their hearts. Yun Jian may have a big appetite, but she has such strength, so why should we be afraid? The rest of the gathering went smoothly. Of course, due to what happened earlier, those who were fearful left early. People like Yi Kai Gao Meihan, and the rest had left long ago. Dai Qingqing, on the other hand, continued to talk to Yun Jian fearlessly with Grandpa Kai. The leopard gang was not like the Dragon Head gang back then, so it would take some time for Yun Jian to take the leopard gang into her Falcon Hall and change all the leopard gang's territories and members into Falcon Hall. Yun Jian was not afraid that Han Biao would go back on his word. Based on the current situation, it was Han Biao who was afraid that Yun Jian would go back on her word. After all, Han Biao was the leader of the top gang in Jia province, but he could not leave. With Yun Jian around, as long as he was not an idiot, he would definitely join Falcon Hall. Chapter 742. After the gathering ended, Han Biao gave Yun Jian his contact and Yun Jian brought Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei for supper. Other than Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, Yun Jian also brought Dai Qingqing, Grandpa Kai, Bear, Might and the rest. Bear Might was flattered to be invited to supper by Yun Jian. Others did not know, but Bear Might was aware of Yun Jian's identity. When Yun Jian learned from Dai Qingqing that there was a seafood barbecue stall nearby, she led the group there without hesitation. When he saw Yun Jian leading the group into the seafood barbecue stall, Bear Might could not help grinning. It turned out that the boss of Kosha mercenaries would bring them to the stall for barbecue too. Looking at how Yun Jian ordered the menu skillfully, Bear Might could not help grumbling inwardly. So the boss of Kosha mercenaries, the richest woman in the secret agent and assassin world, would actually eat the food sold by such a stall. After supper, Yun Jian returned to Xan Garden Hotel with a stomach full of grease. Yun Jian went home early the next morning. Bear Might and the rest left early in the morning, coming over to greet Yun Jian before they left. Dai Qingqing waved goodbye to Yun Jian with tears in her eyes. Yun Jian comforted her by saying that they would meet again next time. They would indeed meet again next time. Since the Panthers Pack's headquarters was here, Yun Jian had to go through a lot of procedures to take them under her Falcon Hall. Especially since Han Biao was from here, Yun Jian would definitely have to travel back and forth in the future. With Dai Qingqing sending them off, Duan Lei drove off with Yun Jian and Zhang Jifan in his car. After about 2 hours of driving, Duan Lei drove Yun Jian and Zhang Jifan back to Longmen City. Once back in Longmen City, Duan Lei could not help hurrying to Falcon Hall's headquarters to report the good news. Falcon Hall would soon become the biggest gang in Jia province. It was all thanks to Yun Jian. New crews belonged to Yun Jian as well. Zhang Jifan's friendship with Duan Lei and the rest had deepened, so he was delighted to see Falcon Hall doing well. After all, the wider Falcon Hall's future path was, at the same time, a representation of how powerful new crews' backing was. It was noon when Yun Jian returned home. Winter had left quietly as the beginning of spring enveloped the city. It was noon when the sun was shining. The temperature during the day was comparable to summer's rain. Yun Jian returned home under the warm sun. Once she entered, Yun Jian saw Lan Su helping Adam down the stairs. Yun Jian, you're back? When she saw Yun Jian, Lan Su had forgotten that Adam was heavily injured and could not walk alone. Lan Su accidentally let go of his hand. Oh my, what the hell? What are you doing? Is this how you serve a patient? Adam's lips twitched exaggeratedly. I'm sorry, I forgot. Lan Su quickly held Adam's hand again and helped him down the stairs gently. Yun Jian pressed her lips together and asked, "Where's my mom?" "Auntie, she went to try on the wedding gown with Auntie Dong Ruan," Lan Su said, remembering Qin Yiru's request. "Where are they?" Yun Jian asked again. "United Luenmai Shopping Center. Young mistress, you can go take a look." Adam held his leg and slowly walked down the stairs with Lan Su's help. Once she heard that Qin Yiru had gone to try on the wedding gown, Yun Jian turned to leave the house and headed to the shopping center. Chapter 743. "I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose." Lan Su's awkward voice could be heard faintly. It was Lan Su's first time serving someone. She had always been the one being served in the past. Even when the shaman tribe had declined in Yulong mainland, Lan Su was not reduced to the point where she had to serve someone. Perhaps it was because she felt that she had let Adam down, so Lan Su could be said to be extremely tolerant of Adam. Stupid woman. After hearing Lan Su's words, Adam, who was about to criticize Lan Su, loosened his mouth and finally spat out these 3 words. On the other hand, Yun Jian was already on her way to United Luenmai Shopping Center. United Luenmai Shopping Center, as the name suggested, could buy most items in Longmen City. While there were not many shops selling wedding gowns, there were a few of them in United Luenmai Shopping Center. In Longmen City, United Luenmai Shopping Center was considered one of the bigger shopping platforms. Yun Jian did not know which shop Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan had gone to, but Yun Jian was patient enough to look for them. Due to the hot weather at noon, Yun Jian only wore a white hoodie with long sleeves. The pure white sweater on her body added a sense of youthfulness and delicateness to her. Those who did not know would think that Yun Jian was just a young girl brimming with youthfulness when they passed by and saw Yun Jian. Yun Jian had yet to find Qin Yiru after walking around several wedding gown shops in United Luenmai Shopping Center. She was not in a hurry either. The day before yesterday, which was Friday night, Yun Jian heard from Qin Yiru that she would be attending a high school reunion with Dong Ruan this afternoon. Yun Jian could guess that Dong Ruan was probably free today and had applied for leave to attend the reunion. Once it was over, she would accompany Qin Yiru to pick out a wedding gown. Dong Ruan was a high-ranking official, so she usually did not have time. It was probably because she had not started work these few days that Dong Ruan and Qin Yiru went to the reunion first upon returning from the countryside and went shopping in the afternoon to pick out a wedding gown for Qin Yiru. May 21st was Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's wedding date. It was already March now, just over 2 months away from the wedding date. It was already considered late for Qin Yiru to pick out a wedding gown now. Unfortunately, Gu Junjian had been busy with military affairs these few days. Yun Jian also knew that Gu Junjian did not have time to accompany Qin Yiru to pick out a wedding gown. Since Dong Ruan was free today, she naturally did it on behalf of Gu Junjian. Just as she thought of this, Yun Jian turned a corner. When she looked up, she inadvertently saw Qin Yiru standing in the distance. Dong Ruan was also standing beside Qin Yiru. Yun Jian slightly restrained her expression and was about to walk over with a smile when she saw a group of people standing in front of Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan in the distance. Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan did not enter the wedding gown shop. The group of people standing in front of Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan looked to be about the same age as the two of them. A woman who stood at the front was lecturing Qin Yiru in a loud, glib voice. "Don't be like this. I was wondering why the two of you left after attending the reunion. It's a reunion after all. Everyone went to karaoke in the afternoon, but the two of you left and even said that you had something to do. If we didn't take this path to the karaoke, we wouldn't have seen the two of you. It's not easy for classmates to gather together. The two of you are really... Also, Qin Yiru, didn't you drop out of high school halfway through? Aren't you already married? Now you're here to pick out a wedding gown. Are you planning to get married again?" Chapter 744. Even the passers-by on the street could not help but stop and turn to glance at Qin Yiru when they heard the woman pointing at Qin Yiru and saying that she was planning to remarry. No matter which era it was, people who remarried would always be gossiped about. Especially at Qin Yiru's age, if this woman stood on the street and said that she was planning to remarry, some passers-by would definitely overthink. If it was accidentally overheard by acquaintances, it would spread like wildfire. Even if it was a good thing, it would become a bad thing. "Yang Whiting, that's enough. You were the one who talked the most in high school. What does Yiru's life have to do with you?" Before the woman could finish, Dong Ruan refuted her with a frown in front of everyone. Compared to her high school self, Dong Ruan was more mature now, but a person's personality would not change. When someone pointed at Qin Yiru, Dong Ruan would stand up for Qin Yiru as usual. Qin Yiru had a weaker personality. Dong Yuan was the reason why she was not bullied by the troublemakers in high school. Dong Yuan was a true career woman. She was a high-ranking official now, so she was naturally capable to reach her current position. The woman named Yang Whiting had been at odds with Dong Yuan since high school, especially Qin Yiru back then. Although Qin Yiru had put on some weight now and looked older due to hard work, Qin Yiru was still a famous beauty when she was in high school. At least in that era, Qin Yiru could be considered a natural beauty. However, her mother arranged for her to marry Yun Gang after she dropped out of school. That was how her miserable first half of her life began. If it were not for Yun Jian and Yun Yi's encouragement, Qin Yiru might not have dared to divorce Yun Gang until now. Fine. I'm not going to meddle in your business. Haha, it's a class reunion and everyone invited you to karaoke in the afternoon out of goodwill. You're the only one who didn't give us any face. You're still in the right? Yang Whiting was still aggressive. With that said, Yang Whiting didn't wait for Dong Yuan to refute. She turned around and asked the group of classmates, "Isn't that right, everyone? Am I right?" Yang Whiting's figure was now very well maintained, and her face was also smeared with all kinds of cosmetics. However, when her classmates gathered for lunch, Yang Whiting showed off her husband's identity. Yang Whiting's husband was the director of a plastic processing factory in Longmen City and was already worth millions. After hearing Yang Whiting's boastful bragging, the other students immediately started to flatter Yang Whiting when they heard her words. Everyone was thinking that it was better to please Yang Whiting than to please Qin Yiru, who was born in the countryside. Yang Whiting, you're right. A fat middle-aged man with a big belly expressed his agreement with Yang Whiting's words. As the middle-aged man spoke, he turned around to scold Qin Yiru. It's a class reunion today. If both of you really have something to do, we won't scold you for leaving so early. But if you don't even want to go shopping with us, you should have said it earlier. We don't lack the two of you. It was a nice reunion, but look what happened now. You've made us unhappy too. You're the ones who are happy now, aren't you? The middle-aged man's words were getting more and more ridiculous as he spoke. Qin Yiru had already planned to come out early to settle on her wedding dress today. Chapter 745. Qin Yiru could not come up with any explanation. She had a weak personality to begin with. Yang Whiting and this middle-aged man were famous blabbermouths when Qin Yiru was in high school. In the words of that time, even dead things could be said to be alive. Today's matter was actually very simple. Dong Yuan took the whole day off today. Dong Yuan was supposed to go to work now. Dong Yuan was a high-ranking official, so it was not easy for her to take a day off. Therefore, Qin Yiru made arrangements early in the morning. After she and Dong Yuan attended the class reunion in the afternoon, they would go to a few bridal shops in the Lianmei shopping center to try on wedding dresses. It was best to decide on the wedding dresses. After all, it was almost the wedding date. However, Qin Yiru did not expect that when she and Dong Yuan bid farewell to everyone in the afternoon, she simply said that she had something to do in the afternoon and could not go to the karaoke with her classmates. In this era, there were only a few kinds of class reunions in middle school and high school. Either everyone gathered together for a meal, then went to karaoke in the afternoon and went home in the evening. Qin Yiru did not expect that after she and Dong Yuan left, they would actually meet this group of classmates who were having a class reunion in the Lianmei shopping center. This was originally not a big deal. However, after Yang Whiting and the pot-bellied middle-aged man, it became Qin Yiru and Dong Yuan did not want to attend the class reunion with them. Then the two of them found an excuse to go shopping by themselves. Qin Yiru did not expect such a small matter to be blown out of proportion. The middle-aged man with a big belly and fat all over his body was called Xinzhong. His name sounded simple and honest, but he wasn't like that at all. The reason why Xinzhong spoke up for Yang Whiting and Qin Yiru was because he heard that Yang Whiting's husband was the CEO of a plastic processing factory. His net worth was over 1,000,000 yuan. He was instantly tempted. Xinzhong had just lost his job not long ago. Therefore, he wanted to use this opportunity to flatter Yang Whiting and beg her to arrange for him to work in her husband's company. Xinzhong, is there something wrong with you? Do you think we'll have to go with you if you say that? Good. Since you've said so, I'll tell you that Yiru and I don't want to attend the class reunion with you. If you have any class gatherings in the future, don't look for us. Dong Yuan was infuriated by the two unreasonable people, Yang Whiting and Xinzhong. She immediately raised her voice and spoke in an unpleasant tone. Dong Yuan's personality was not as weak as Qin Yiru's. Especially when the other party was being unreasonable, she immediately shouted, "Look, you admitted it yourself." Yang Whiting shrugged her shoulders. In fact, Yang Whiting had stolen the limelight at the class reunion this afternoon. Yang Whiting felt that Dong Ruan and Qin Yiru were the two most useless people in the class. That was why the two of them were in a hurry to leave right after lunch. When Yang Whiting was in high school, she had a small conflict with Dong Ruan and Qin Yiru. Therefore, it was actually Yang Whiting who led them here today to bump into Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan, who came to United Luenmai Shopping Center to pick out wedding dresses. Her motive was obvious as well. She wanted to embarrass Dong Ruan and Qin Yiru. Yang Whiting had no idea that Dong Ruan was now a high-ranking official in Longmen City. Otherwise, Yang Whiting would not have dared to insult Dong Ruan and Qin Yiru in front of everyone even if she wanted to. So what if my mom and Auntie Dong admitted it? I'm the one who told them not to stay too long with trash before they came. Is that wrong? Yun Jian's melodious voice rang out just as Yang Whiting was in high spirits. Chapter 746. Yun Jian listened from the side and figured out the whole story. Yang Whiting was here purely to cause trouble for Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan. As Yun Jian spoke, she was already strolling over. She had just returned from Hang City. After knowing that Qin Yiru had gone to pick out a wedding dress, she wanted to rush over to accompany Qin Yiru. She did not expect to encounter such a situation. Yun Jian knew Qin Yiru very well. One should not be too weak or else one would be bullied. That was true, but Qin Yiru was weak. She would never brag in front of others. Even if Yun Jian was the director of new crews, Qin Yiru would not brag in front of others because she was not that kind of person. That was why Yang Whiting came to bully her. Although Yun Jian did not like Qin Yiru's weak personality, there was nothing she could do. The only thing she could do was to protect Qin Yiru and not let others bully her. Just as Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone present twitched violently. By the time they came back to their senses, Yun Jian was already in front of them. Trash? Who are you talking about? Yang Whiting shrieked when she heard that. She was dressed fashionably and even had bright red nail polish on her hands. However, when she heard Yun Jian's words, Yang Whiting could not hold it in anymore. You're the bastard child of Qin Yiru and the man she dropped out of high school to marry, right? Who are you calling trash? Yang Whiting loved to curse when she was young. Now that she heard Yun Jian call them trash, she did not hold back at all. Everyone present was Qin Yiru's high school student. When Yun Jian called them trash, she included all of them. When Yang Whiting insulted Qin Yiru, everyone present looked at Qin Yiru with disdain. Yun Jian saw everything clearly. Qin Yiru had dropped out of high school to marry a man from the countryside. Everyone present thought that Qin Yiru was a poor village woman who lived in the countryside, someone who would never be able to make a name for herself. Therefore, no one bothered with her during the class reunion in the afternoon. Some of them even mocked Qin Yiru jokingly. If Dong Ruan had not replied for her, Qin Yiru would not have known how to answer. I'll talk to whoever responds to me, Yun Jian replied faintly with a cold glance at Yang Whiting. Yun Jian ignored Yang Whiting and went over to take Qin Yiru's hand, telling Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan, Mom, Auntie Dong, let's go. As she spoke, Yun Jian was about to pull Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan into the bridal gown shop. You. Yang Whiting was rendered speechless by Yun Jian's words. Seeing that Yun Jian was about to pull Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan away in the next second, Yang Whiting was enraged. Her eyes then landed on the signboard of the bridal gown shop. It's Jelly Bridal Gown Shop. This is the biggest bridal gown shop in Longmen City. The lowest price for a bridal gown is tens of thousands. Can you guys afford it? Yang Whiting could not help shouting when she saw that Yun Jian and her friends were about to enter the shop. As Yang Whiting spoke, she did not forget to boast. When I got married to my husband, we bought our bridal gowns here. They cost 30,000 apiece. I said it was too expensive, but he insisted on buying them for me. I really can't do anything about him. Yang Whiting began to indulge in her own ego as she spoke. Emosun by all the shops in United Luenmai Shopping Center. Just as Yang Whiting was feeling smug, a rich and pleasant male voice rang out. Yun Jian turned around abruptly when she heard the familiar voice. Chapter 747. Everyone was stunned by Si Yi's sudden appearance. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan did not expect Si Yi to show up out of the blue. What surprised them the most was that Si Yi had addressed the person as mother-in-law. The term mother-in-law was undoubtedly referring to Qin Yiru. Si Yi did not mention future mother-in-law, which meant that Si Yi had set his mind on Yun Jian and would not allow Yun Jian to go back on her word. In contrast to Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan's reaction, Yang Whiting and the rest had never seen Si Yi before. Especially Yang Whiting. When she realized that the mother-in-law Ce was referring to was Qin Yiru, she laughed sarcastically. Mother-in-law? TSK. While Yang Whiting was chuckling, Mo's son had already turned to leave. Yang Whiting was still looking at Qin Yiru with a mocking gaze. Qin Yiru, you're a mother-in-law so early? Ha, your daughter is only in junior high, isn't she? As she spoke, Yang Whiting glanced at Yun Jian in disdain. She then turned to look at Ce who had just appeared, only to see Ce's handsome face that would infuriate both humans and gods. Even the middle-aged Yang Whiting could not help gasping when she saw Ce, but she recovered quickly. Like mother, like daughter. You dropped out of high school and your daughter found a man so quickly. Is she planning to climb up the social ladder and become a phoenix? Yang Whiting taunted Qin Yiru again. Yang Whiting thought about it carefully. Her husband was the director of Longmen City's largest plastic processing factory and was worth millions. Yang Whiting had attended many gatherings with her husband. She had attended all the gatherings in Longmen City, big and small. However, she had never seen Ce before. With that, Yang Whiting automatically assumed that Ce was a conceited young man. Who was he kidding? It was like a joke. Luenmai Shopping Center was not a place where one could just buy whatever they wanted. In Longmen City in this era, anyone with a net worth of millions could be considered a millionaire. The total assets of all the stores in Luenmai Shopping Center should be at least tens of millions, if not 100 million. Even if Ce was a rich second-generation heir, how could he have so much money? Was this a joke? After all, money in this era was much more valuable than it was now. 1 yuan back then might be equivalent to 10 or 20 yuan now. Yang Whiting could not help scolding Ce who was walking toward Yun Jian. She could not help scolding Ce. Yang Whiting could not help blowing her own trumpet. Forget it. It's useless to tell you all this. Those who aren't born into a rich family are destined to not have the dignity of a rich family. After Yang Whiting said those words, many people present were unhappy. Even the group of people who were with Yang Whiting just now were a little unhappy. It was because most of them were from ordinary families. While Yang Whiting was speaking, Ce had already walked to Yun Jian. He extended his fair and slender hand to caress Yun Jian's head softly in front of everyone. Qin Yiru was quite angry with Yang Whiting as well, but she was too weak and afraid of getting into trouble. When Ce stood up for her just now, Qin Yiru had a better impression of Ce. When Yang Whiting saw that no one was paying attention to her, she thought that she was right and continued her tirade. When Yang Whiting thought that Ce, Yun Jian, and the rest had all listened to her, Ce merely caressed Yun Jian's head without even looking at her. Chapter 748. Ce did not even look at Yang Whiting. Instead, he called her a piece of trash. Was he not referring to her when he called her a piece of trash? Yang Whiting was close to vomiting blood from anger. Yun Jian had called her a piece of trash just now, and now even Ce who had just arrived was calling her a piece of trash. Yang Whiting was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Her husband was the director of Longmen City's plastic processing factory. No matter how useless she was now considered a member of a wealthy family. What about Yun Jian and Ce? Both of them had called her a piece of trash. It was already good enough that Yang Whiting did not vomit blood from anger. Yun Jian nodded faintly as she lifted her head to look at Ce's flawless chin. Qin Yiru, who stood aside, was extremely comforted. She might have thought that Ce was a pitiful child without a mother or father since he was young. Now, Qin Yiru had already treated Ce as one of her family and her future son-in-law from the bottom of her heart based on how he was protecting Yun Jian. Piece of trash? Piece of trash your head. Just as Yang Whiting could no longer hold back her laughter, Mo Sen's voice came from beside her. Mo Sen's voice came from the side again. Young master, I've already bought all the stores in the United Luenmai Shopping Center at 10 times the price. 10 times the price. Before Yang Whiting could curse, she was drowned out by Mo Sen's voice. And now everyone was stunned on the spot. 10 times the price? He had bought all the storefronts in United Luenmai Shopping Center? Was this a joke? Or was this man who called Ce young master just acting along with Ce's act? Do you think it's that easy to buy the storefronts here? Do you think all the shopkeepers here are willing to give you their storefronts? Do you even have the money? Yang Whiting did not believe that Ce had so much money on hand. After all, some of the shopkeepers here were unwilling to hand over their storefronts to others. Some of them had business and could recoup their losses and even earn a lot of money. Why would they give their storefronts to others so easily? Of course, if Ce really had 10 times the sum of all the shopkeepers in United Luenmai Shopping Center, it was not impossible to buy all the storefronts here at 10 times the price. After all, No shopkeeper would be dumb enough to sell their storefronts to others for 10 times the price and save them years of hard work. After all, they could do something else immediately after taking the money. They could even look for new storefronts. What's more, it was 10 times the money. It would be a waste not to take it. The problem was to buy all of the storefronts in Luenmai shopping center was bought over 100 million Chinese yuan, a few hundred million yuan. In 1999, how many families of households of the entire Luenmai Yang? Forget taking out so much money at once, it was still unknown if the total assets of Longmen City's tycoons combined could even reach 100 million. Just as Yang Whiting was about to mock Yun Jian and CE in front of everyone, she suddenly saw a plump figure. Yang? Manager Yang? Yang Whiting looked at the fat figure that suddenly appeared in surprise. She immediately remembered that when she participated in a large-scale project with her husband last time, she happened to see this man suddenly running over from the other side. The man who suddenly appeared was the manager of United Luenmai Shopping Center, surnamed Yang. However, just as Yang Whiting thought of this, she saw Manager Yang go around her, lock onto Mo Sen's figure and run towards him. After that, Manager Yang bowed his head and attached a card to Mo Sen in front of everyone. You keep it well. 300 million yuan has been credited to your account. 3 days later, I will negotiate and contact all the shops to leave the goods behind and move out of here. 300 million RMB had been deposited into the account. Chapter 749. It was not just Yang Whiting. Even Shen Zhong, who had spoken up for Yang Whiting just now, as well as all the high school classmates who had never looked Qin Yiru in the eye. Everyone was rooted to the spot, dumbfounded as they stared at Manager Yang and Mo Sen, who had appeared out of nowhere. Finally they shifted their gazes to CE. Everyone present was in disbelief. 300 million yuan. This man, who looked young, at most 20 years old, was actually able to fork out 300 million yuan. It had only been a short while since CE had sent Mo Sen to buy all the storefronts in United Luenmai Shopping Center. This also pointed to another point. CE's subordinate, Mo Sen, had hundreds of millions of yuan in his pocket at all times. Heavens! Some of the top tycoons in Longmen City only had a few hundred million yuan in total assets. Moreover, even these tycoons might only have a few million in their pockets. What about C? He had offered 300 million yuan in one go. This meant that CE's total assets were far more than this amount. Although CE was not Qin Yiru's biological child, everyone present was certain that he was serious about this, judging by how CE treated Yun Jian. This meant that such a rich son-in-law would become a family with Qin Yiru sooner or later. Yang Whiting calmed down after her initial shock. For a moment, she was overwhelmed by a feeling of indignation. This money was not earned by Qin Yiru's daughter. Moreover, even if CE was Qin Yiru's future son-in-law, he was not now. Moreover, no one present could tell what would happen in the future. Perhaps such a rich son-in-law would not like Qin Yiru's daughter anymore? Qin Yiru would still be penniless. As Yang Whiting had a conflict with Dong Ruan and Qin Yiru in high school, and she was a vengeful person, she could only console herself in the face of such a reality. Just as Yang Whiting could no longer hold herself back and was about to slip away with her classmates, Manager Yang's voice rang out again. Manager Yang's surprised voice rang again. No. New Cruises Director? Why are you here? What? New Cruises Director? Could it be CE? Bewilderment flashed across everyone's mind. Could CE be New Cruises Director? Everyone present turned to look at Manager Yang in surprise. Instead, Steward Yang was walking toward CE. He was New Cruises Director. Yang Whiting's heart skipped a beat. It was the kind of shock that came from fear. Who did not know the title of New Cruises Director? New Cruise had only been established for about half a year, but it was already a household name in Longmen City, while the company's name was known all over the country. Back then, New Cruise had displayed 3 limited edition supercars at the auto show. It could be said that New Cruise was a legend. However, if CE was New Cruise's director, it was not impossible for him to fork out 300 million Chinese yuan to buy United Luenmai Shopping Center based on the company's marketing record. Just as everyone thought so, Manager Yang sprinted toward Yun Jian. His plump frame shuddered left and right before he finally came to Yun Jian. Manager Yang extended a trembling hand to Yun Jian as if he had received the greatest honor, his voice trembling. You're New Cruises Director, aren't you? You might not remember me, but I saw you at the auto show last year. Your commentary on the supercars was even better than the average commentator. Chapter 750. Yun Jian was New Cruises Director? Was this a joke? Everyone present was rooted to the spot like they had just encountered something strange. Everyone knew that news of New Cruz had spread throughout Longmen City. It was said that New Cruz had come up with a new plan and would expand to the entire country soon. In an era as advanced as modern technology, car marketing companies like New Cruz were gradually going downhill. Perhaps New Cruz was still developing in Longmen City, but the government had begun to support the car marketing project. In other words, it was only a matter of time for New Cruz to expand out of Longmen City and into the entire country. There was a main reason for New Cruz's rise to fame: the auto show they held before they started operations. In the entire Z Nation, which company could produce 3 limited edition supercars at once? To put it bluntly, New Cruz's director was rich. Therefore, when everyone present heard that the rumored director of New Cruz was Yun Jian, they were all stunned. Not a single one of them looked ordinary. Except for Qin Yiru, Dong Ruan, Ce, and Mo Sen, who already knew about it. Currently, New Cruz was indeed going downhill and its future was immeasurable. That was why manager Yang of United Luenmai Shopping Center spoke to Yun Jian in such a respectful manner. No, how is this possible? Qin Yiru, your daughter is New Cruz's director? Oh, how is this possible? Yang Whiting was wearing a pair of bright red high heels, but she took 2 steps back in the opposite direction and looked at Qin Yiru with a terrified gaze. This. Shen Zhong, who had helped Yang Whiting to insult Qin Yiru just now, the pot-bellied, plump middle-aged man who stood behind Yang Whiting, was in disbelief as well. At this moment, other than disbelief, Shen Zhong was filled with deep regret. Qin Yiru's daughter was New Cruz's director. Who would have thought of something like this? Shen Zhong had tried to please Yang Whiting purely because he had lost his job and wanted to get a job in her husband's company. And the result? He had offended the mother of the director of New Cruz. She had long heard that New Cruz's employees' monthly salary was higher than any other company or place in Longmen City. Of course, Shen Zhong wanted to go in, but he couldn't. But at this moment, Shen Zhong rolled his eyes and thought of another way. Just as Yang Whiting and Shen Zhong spoke, Steward Yang was already staring at Yun Jian. He reached out his hand as if waiting for Yun Jian to reach out and shake his hand. Yes. Yun Jian responded to manager Yang under everyone's expectant gazes. However, just as she was about to shake manager Yang's hand, it was grabbed by Ce. Steward Yang originally lowered his head and sincerely wanted to shake Yun Jian's hand, but when he realized that Yun Jian did not reach out to shake his hand for a long time, he raised his head slightly. Once he did, Steward Yang's plump frame shuddered violently, and so did his body, as if he had seen something terrifying. He almost lost his footing from the shock and almost fell to the ground. Everyone present clearly saw manager Yang's reaction, so they were all very surprised and bewildered. Following Steward Yang's angle, they saw Ce glaring at him coldly. Chapter 751. Ce's stare sent chills down manager Yang's spine. He swallowed his saliva and didn't dare to extend his hand towards Yun Jian. In spite of it, manager Yang's gaze was fixed on Yun Jian. Of course, he was looking at her with admiration. Yo, can you give me your phone number? It'll be easier to contact you in the future. Manager Yang suddenly thought of something. He quickly took out his phone with trembling hands and asked Yun Jian. For someone of manager Yang's status, the people he interacted with were all big bosses of the same status. Moreover, in 1999 mobile phones had started to enter the market. Communication devices such as mobile phones and pagers had already become popular among the big bosses. Sure. Yun Jian smiled and was about to take her phone out of her pocket. Oh. However, before Yun Jian could take out her phone, Ce's mellow voice came from behind Yun Jian. Manager Yang's body shrunk when he felt Ce's murderous gaze. He didn't know why, but this man gave him the feeling that if he asked for Yun Jian's number, he would kill him without hesitation. Therefore, manager Yang shrunk his fat body and stuffed his phone back into his pocket. Clang. Manager Yang swallowed his saliva and shrunk his body before continuing, "Pretend I didn't say anything." Even Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan, who were standing aside, could not help twitching their lips when they saw the scene. Dong Ruan, on the other hand, was amused. Based on Dong Ruan's understanding of Ce, ever since Ce's mother passed away, this child had started to hate the world. Ce's mother was Dong Ruan's biological sister. Dong Ruan naturally felt sad when she saw Ce's reaction. She was originally worried about Ce. What would happen to this child in the future? However, Dong Ruan had finally gotten over it. Look, she didn't have to worry anymore. Her stupid nephew, who was an emotional idiot, would probably give her a grandnephew in a few years' time. When she retired in her old age, she would take a stroll with Yiru. She could even find time to hug her grandniece. Most importantly, by then she and Chinyiru would really become in-laws. Although there were many layers of relationships, they could still be considered as in-laws. When Yunjin saw that Ce didn't agree, she immediately smiled and refused to give Steward Yang her number. Yunjin turned to look at Chinyiru, pursed her lips and said, "Mom, let's go in. I'm free in the afternoon so I can accompany you to shop." Yunjin had to go to school for evening self-study, but she had nothing to do in the afternoon, so she could accompany Chinyiru to choose a wedding dress. Although it was Chinyiru's second marriage, Yunjin had heard about it from her brother Yun-yi. When Chinyiru was with Yun-gang, they didn't have the money to get married. After Yun-yi was born, they couldn't even afford to buy Yun-yi's milk powder. At that time, Chinyiru didn't have any milk, so Yun-yi was all skin and bones from starvation when she was young. When the original owner was 2 years old, Chinyiru and Yun-gang had their wedding. However, this so-called wedding didn't have a wedding dress, only a pitiful amount of dowry. Chinyiru's mother-in-law, Lu Lanhua, was a stingy person, so the villagers only invited a few families to have a meal and made do with it. In this day and age, people who drove cars to get married were the wealthiest people in the world. Chapter 752. Oh, okay. Chinyiru snapped out of her shock and answered Yunjin at once. Other than Dong Ruan, who was her best friend for life, Chinyiru really did not think much of her high school classmates. Of course, the reason Chinyiru did not fight back when she was bullied was not because she was a saint but because she was afraid of getting into trouble. To Chinyiru, cowardice was her most obvious weakness. Nevertheless, it did not mean that Chinyiru did not hate others at all. She was human too. She would usually hate or detest someone, but she would not voice it out for someone like Chinyiru. She would only keep her thoughts hidden in the depths of her heart. Now that Yunjin was successful and capable, it was Chinyiru's greatest satisfaction and pride. "Hey, let's go," Chinyiru promised Yunjin and was about to turn to call Ce. It was evident that Chinyiru was treating Ce as her real son-in-law. Puppy love was not a good thing. Chinyiru agreed with that. To Chinyiru, if Xiao Jian and Xiao Yi met someone decent, Chinyiru would not object. On the contrary, she would support them wholeheartedly. After all, Chinyiru was someone who got married and got pregnant early. What she did was not considered puppy love. When she married Yun-gang, Chinyiru had never fallen in love. Of course, it was not impossible that Chinyiru had fantasized about Yun-gang for a period of time. Since what happened later, however, no matter how many fantasies Chinyiru had, they were all gone now. It was fortunate that she was able to meet Officer Gu while she was still alive. Once she thought of Officer G's tolerance and like-minded personality, Chinyiru looked forward to the days ahead. "Yes, let's go." Ce agreed to Chinyiru's request. Then he smiled and grabbed Yunjian's hand as they walked into the bridal shop named Jelly. Seeing this, Emo-sen wanted to follow in. Just as Chinyiru and Dong Ruan were about to turn around and enter, a male voice rang out, "Wait!" When they first heard this voice, Chinyiru and Dong Ruan stopped in their tracks. Yunjian sensed that Chinyiru was not following them, so she tugged on Ce's hand and turned around. Shinzhong, who had been criticizing Chinyiru along with Yang Whiting, called out to stop Chinyiru and Dong Ruan. "Chinyiru, Dong Ruan, it was my fault just now. I've wronged you. I hope you can forgive me." Shinzhong suddenly apologized. Then he brought up the topic that everyone wanted to forget. "I thought you didn't want to hang out with us, that's why you said that. Now I know that you're here to buy a wedding dress, right? I've wronged you. I hope you can forgive me." Shinzhong's eyes darted around as he spoke. There was a reason for Shinzhong to show his weakness. Shinzhong had been unemployed for a while now. Now that he had offended the mother of the director of New Cruise, he felt that he was showing his weakness to Chinyiru and Dong Ruan. Chinyiru had a weak heart, and since they were classmates, it should not be difficult for Chinyiru to ask her daughter to get him a job in New Cruise, right? Of course, Shinzhong's decision to suck up to Yunjian meant that he had decided to fall out with Yang Whiting. As expected, even if Yang Whiting knew that Yunjian was the director of New Cruise, she would not show her weakness. When Yang Whiting saw Shinzhong's sudden betrayal, she immediately shouted at him, "Shinzhong, what's the meaning of this? Didn't you agree?" Chapter 753. Agree to what? However, before everyone could hear the rest of Yang Whiting's words, Shinzhong had already threatened Yang Whiting, "You be asterisk teach, don't speak in front of me. Do you believe that I won't expose your dirty secrets?" Yang Whiting and Shinzhong's words made everyone present bewildered. However, no one knew what was going on. Sure enough, when Yang Whiting heard that Xinzhong was going to expose her secret, her face instantly turned pale. When everyone present heard Yang Whiting and Xinzhong's conversation, they became even more suspicious. What other dirty secrets could there be? Could it be that Yang Whiting and Xinzhong had some other relationship? Yun Jin's eyebrows twitched as an undetectable glint flashed across her eyes. Ce, on the other hand, lifted the black watch on his wrist and glanced at it. His thick brows on his flawlessly handsome face frowned slightly. It's 12:30 p.m. Time to go. Ce's inappropriate voice suddenly sounded. Yun Jin didn't want to talk to Yang Whiting and Xinzhong anymore, so she said to Qin Yiru, "Mom, don't worry about them. Let's go." Okay. Qin Yiru remembered that she had to rush home to prepare dinner because Yun Jin had to go to school for self-study. Hence, she didn't want to waste any more time here. Wait, are you not going to forgive me? Xinzhong panicked when he heard that Yun Jin and Ce were about to leave. However, Xinzhong was a person who knew how to adjust to the situation. He didn't ask Yun Jin, Ce or Dong Ruan. Instead, he asked Qin Yiru directly. Xinzhong had grasped Qin Yiru's personality. He knew that Qin Yiru had a soft personality. In high school, Qin Yiru had a soft personality. Furthermore, whenever someone asked her for something, she would give it to them. She was extremely kind. Qin Yiru panicked after being questioned by Xinzhong. "We have nothing to do with you. How can you forgive us?" When Yun Jin saw Xinzhong's expression, she knew that Xinzhong definitely had something to ask of her. Hence, Yun Jin took over Qin Yiru's words and said to Xinzhong. The meaning of Yun Jin's words could not be more obvious. Even if Yun Jin couldn't guess what Xinzhong was thinking, she had a rough idea. Just by looking at Xinzhong's appearance, Yun Jin knew that he definitely had something to ask of her. Or rather, he needed to use new crews. If a person like Xinzhong was recruited into new crews, or even put in an important position, new crew's future would not last long. "Mom, let's go." Yun Jin shook off Ce's hand this time and walked over to pull Qin Yiru towards Jelly Bridal Boutique. Seeing Yun Jin and the rest walk into Jelly Bridal Boutique, Xinzhong's wishful thinking was ruined. He looked on hatefully as Yun Jin's figure disappeared before him. However, there was nothing he could do about it. When Yang Whiting saw that Yun Jin and the rest had walked into Jelly Bridal Boutique, she instantly lost the intention to continue fooling around. Hence, she told everyone present, "I suddenly feel unwell. I'll take my leave first. Wait." Xinzhong knew that he could no longer get into new crews. Hence, he turned around to please Yang Whiting. "Yang Whiting, about what you promised me before." "Tui, no way." Yang Whiting was filled with anger when she recalled what Xinzhong had done earlier. She then said through gritted teeth. Chapter 754. Yang Whiting's expression changed again when she heard Xinzhong mention it again. However, she soon remembered that Xinzhong was just saying it casually. He had threatened her with it a few times before, but he had never dared to reveal it. Although in front of a group of high school classmates, Yang Whiting was afraid that Xinzhong would really say it out loud, but she still didn't change her arrogant face. Yang Whiting lifted her head to look at Xinzhong, and even said in a provocative tone, "Do you dare? If you do, I won't help you anymore. You mother****, do you think your husband's lousy company is of any use? Compared to new crews, your husband's plastic processing factory should shut down as soon as possible." Xinzhong spat at Yang Whiting through clenched teeth when he heard her tone. The thought of Yang Whiting causing him to be unable to enter new crews made Xinzhong even angrier. Xinzhong thought that he was unable to enter new crews purely because he helped Yang Whiting to talk to Qin Yiru. It was all Yang Whiting's fault. As for Yang Whiting's husband's plastic processing factory, Xinzhong did not want to enter new crews after he heard about it. Look at this. What's the use of this woman carrying a bag and wearing branded clothes? She was still moaning excitedly under me yesterday. Xinzhong was so angry that his eyelids were rolling. Hence, he decided to go all out and reveal the whole thing. Yang Whiting did not expect Xinzhong to really reveal the whole thing, especially in front of all her high school classmates. Yang Whiting's face was pale, but she reacted quickly. She shouted at Xinzhong, "You're spouting nonsense. Why would I be with a damn fatty like you? ****, Yang Whiting, you have a mole on your left chest. You should know if I'm spouting nonsense or not." Xinzhong cursed and turned to leave in a huff. In the end, Yang Whiting was the only one left to deal with the situation. "Yang Whiting, I remember that you really do have a mole on your left chest." A high school classmate who used to be Yang Whiting's roommate said hesitantly. Everyone present understood what was going on when they heard that. Yang Whiting did have an affair with Xinzhong, but Xinzhong was so fat and ugly that Yang Whiting was actually forced. If there was a first time, there would be a second time. In the beginning, Xinzhong even took photos. Later, Xinzhong kept threatening Yang Whiting with the photos. Of course, Yang Whiting's secret would not have been exposed today if she had not brought a bunch of people to put on airs in front of Qin Yiru in the first place. As for how Yang Whiting was going to clean up the mess, it was all up to her. Yun Jian and the others had already entered Jelly Bridal shop. As soon as they walked into Jelly Bridal boutique, Qin Yiru mentioned that Ce had really bought the Lianmei shopping center. After all, in Qin Yiru's opinion, it was fine for Ce to be rich, but money shouldn't be spent so recklessly. Yiru, don't mind him. He's just like a child. Hey, he lacks everything but money. Dong Yuan told Qin Yiru. Dong Yuan then told Qin Yiru jokingly, "You've given your daughter to him. Our bill today will be on him. Yiru, don't be courteous with A. Even if we buy everything in Longmen City today, he'll still follow us happily and pay for us." As Dong Yuan spoke, she glanced at Ce, who was holding Yun Jian's hand tightly as if afraid that Yun Jian would get lost. Chapter 755. Dong Yuan was a fashion-savvy person. The wedding gown that she had chosen for Qin Yiru was unique as well. It brought out Qin Yiru's beauty. It had been some time since Qin Yiru went to work. Qin Yiru had been taking care of her 3 children, Xiao Yunju, Duan Li and Duan Ya. The 3 children were obedient. Of course, while Xiao Yunju and the other 2 children were away at school, Qin Yiru had nothing to do at home. She would even go to the nearby park to work out. Moreover, Qin Yiru would appear punctually at the small park near the villa in the morning, noon and night. Qin Yiru's appetite did not decrease, but her figure was noticeably slimmer than before. Overworking oneself did not necessarily mean that one would become thinner. On the contrary, one would gain weight. Qin Yiru's days were quite comfortable. Compared to when she was in Xinjiang town, the difference was like heaven and earth. "Yiru, go try on this wedding gown. It matches you perfectly," Dong Yuan said and quickly asked the attendant to bring out a wedding gown with an extra long hemline. Qin Yiru had a good temper. She had already changed into more than 10 wedding gowns. Now that Dong Yuan had brought out a wedding gown, Qin Yiru patiently changed into it. Dong Yuan glanced at the wedding gowns that were hanging on the rack. From the corner of her eye, she caught sight of Yun Jian and Ce, who were not too far away. Yun Jian was sitting on the bench in the resting area while Ce was standing beside Yun Jian. His tall and slender legs were pressed against Yun Jian's resting area. His handsome face attracted the attention of many ladies who had entered the bridal shop to pick out their wedding gowns. Of course, Ce's eyes were fixed on Yun Jian the entire time. Dong Yuan walked along the rows of neatly hung wedding gowns and stood in front of Yun Jian. Then, she happily stood in front of Yun Jian and placed a wedding gown in front of Yun Jian. "Xiao Jian, this wedding gown suits you. Do you want to try it on?" Yun Jian was sitting in the lounge and reading a newspaper when she heard Dong Yuan's words. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. She looked up at Dong Yuan and pursed her lips slightly. "Me? Yeah, it doesn't cost anything to try. Besides, it might be your and A's turn in less than 2 to 3 years," Dong Yuan said as she pulled Yun Jian to her feet. At the same time, she pushed Yun Jian into the changing room with a smile. Yun Jian had been sitting in the lounge waiting for Qin Yiru to give her comments after she changed into a wedding gown. She did not expect Dong Yuan to drag her to try on a wedding gown. Yun Jian tugged at the corners of her lips, but she eventually took the wedding gown that Dong Yuan had forcefully passed to her with a smile and entered the changing room. Ce's dark eyes glinted before he turned his gaze to the changing room where Yun Jian was changing. Dong Yuan snickered behind Ce at the sight. "This wedding gown is a little tight." Qin Yiru had already come out of the changing room. She shrank back and looked around before asking, "Where's Xiao Jian?" "I asked her to try on the wedding gown." "Ah." Dong Yuan giggled. Before Qin Yiru could react, the door to Yun Jian's changing room opened. Everyone's gaze turned to the door. Yun Jian was wearing a one-shoulder strapless wedding gown that did not reach the floor. The simple and crisp wedding gown was just like her, bright and dazzling. Yun Jian's fair skin paired with the pure white wedding gown made her look like an angel who had returned from heaven. It was so tempting that one could not wait to rub her into their body. "Is it strange?" Yun Jian asked when she saw that everyone was stunned. She looked down at the wedding gown she was wearing. Chapter 756. When Yun Jian came out, Ce did not react much, but it could be seen from his abrupt squint that he was taken aback. Yun Jian had a great figure. She had the best curves in all the right places. There was not a single bit of flesh missing from her body and not a single bit of excess in the places where there should not be flesh. Her slender yet voluptuous legs were covered by the hem of the wedding gown, but the gown's design was a one-shoulder spaghetti strap and a tube top. Yunjian's ample bosom and her slim yet voluptuous arms were paired with her curvy waist and slightly perky bottom. Yunjian was mesmerizing no matter how one looked at her. Even Mo Sen, who had never been attracted to women, could not help taking a few more glances. It was only when he felt Siyi's murderous glare that he realized that he was openly checking out his young mistress in front of the young master. Mo Sen hurriedly averted his gaze. He even coughed to cover up his awkwardness at the moment. "What's the rush, kid? Why are you buying a wedding gown so early?" Dong Ruan came over and glared at Siyi with a grin before holding Yunjian's hand. "I told you this wedding gown suits you. There was no need to mention how beautiful it was." Dong Ruan said and patted the back of Yunjian's hand affectionately. Yunjian looked back with a smile. "My Xiaojian looks good in anything, unlike me. My figure is already out of shape." Qin Yiru came over with a grin as well. "So you have to work out well. You must look beautiful on our wedding day." Dong Ruan said with a grin. May I ask?" It was then that a low male voice was heard. They turned their heads and saw a middle-aged man standing in front of them with a digital camera in his hand. The middle-aged man was slightly plump and wore a pair of round spectacles. He looked rather refined and cultured. When Qin Yiru saw the middle-aged man, she thought that he was here to ask for directions, so she replied, "Excuse me, is this young lady your daughter?" In terms of appearance, Yun Jian and Qin Yiru were quite similar. Therefore, the middle-aged man hung the digital camera in front of his chest and asked Qin Yiru. Qin Yiru was a little suspicious, but she still nodded. "It's like this. I'm a talent scout from Beiguang Model Agency. My name is Zhao Jingmin. I just happened to see your daughter's stunning beauty, so I want to hire her to our company." The man who claimed to be a talent scout, Zhao Jingmin, said as he took out a business card from his pocket. Just as Zhao Jingmin was about to pass the business card to Qin Yiru, Siyi said decisively, "She won't go." Siyi was already taller than the average person. Zhao Jingmin was about 1.75 meters tall, which was not considered short among men. However, compared to Siyi, who was 1.85 meters tall, he had to raise his head slightly to look at him. Siyi was shielding Yun Jian behind him with a slight frown. His unapproachable expression sent chills down one's spine. However, a talent scout like Zhao Jingmin was used to seeing all kinds of people in the secular world. Although he was slightly stunned, he did not know who this man was. However, Zhao Jingmin still passed the business card to Qin Yiru and said to Qin Yiru, "Our company is a legitimate company, and I'm responsible for attracting people with potential to our company. If you're interested." Zhao Jingmin was indeed shocked by Yun Jian's shocked expression, but he completely ignored Siyi's words. After all, Yun Jian was definitely a student at her age. Since she was a student, her mother would definitely be in charge of her company. Chapter 757. Was this Zhao Jingmin courting death? Didn't he hear what I said? A murderous glint flashed across Siyi's eyes. Whenever he thought of Yun Jian's appearance being peeked at by outsiders, he would have the urge to kill the other party immediately. Zhao Jingmin was so scared that his whole body almost trembled when he heard Siyi's voice. Siyi's voice was dignified and respectful, especially when he revealed his murderous intent. There were not many people in the world who could look him in the eye. Although Zhao Jingmin was shocked, he quickly calmed down. As someone in Zhao Jingmin's line of work, he had seen a lot of ups and downs. Moreover, Zhao Jingmin had encountered someone who chased after him with a broom and beat him up before. Of course, Zhao Jingmin's job was to discover new stars and find new models for his company or actors in the entertainment industry. This was his job and his goal. In order to achieve his goal, Zhao Jingmin would do whatever it took. Zhao Jingmin discovered Yun Jian because he wanted to take a digital camera into the bridal shop to film some daily activities. However, he did not expect to capture such a scene. A girl opened the door to the dressing room. At that moment, it was as if she was illuminated by a beam of light. Zhao Jingmin felt like he had never seen such a beautiful scene in his life. Her graceful figure, coupled with the strapless and one-shoulder wedding gown, made her every move seem like a fairyland. It was even more beautiful than the scenery in fairyland. Zhao Jingmin was completely mesmerized. That was why he wanted to rope Yun Jian into his company. Can you seriously consider it? If you join our company, you will have a bright future. For example, if you intern at our company for a few years, we can arrange for you to debut. You can also enter the entertainment industry. Perhaps the entertainment industry is not popular yet, but nowadays movies and TV series are gradually becoming popular. I believe that in a few years movies and TV series will be popular all over the country. And I really don't want to miss out on a talent like your daughter, so, in 1999 acting in movies and TV series was not as popular as it was now. On the contrary, when the profession of acting in movies or TV series was first introduced, acting was still a very dishonorable profession. At that time, people still called actors and actresses. In ancient times, actors and actresses were never respected. Of course, in the later period, the social status of actors changed dramatically in people's daily lives. In 1999, every household had yet to be able to afford a television. However, a talent scout like Zhao Jingmin could only coax little girls. Of course, if it was a legitimate talent scout or a legitimate company, it would be fine. Ce didn't even want to explain herself to Zhao Jingmin, who kept pestering her. Courting death? I'll fulfill your wish. Mo Sen, Ce pursed his lips and looked at Yun Jian, but his words were directed at Mo. Senator Mo Sen received the order and was about to make a move. No. Let's talk it out, don't fight here. Qin Yiru knew Ce's temper, but fighting here would affect the others. Qin Yiru was kind-hearted, so she stopped her. As soon as Qin Yiru stopped her, Mo Sen immediately stopped. This was the future mother-in-law of the young master. How could he dare to offend her? However, Qin Yiru had already turned to look at Zhao Jingmin and said apologetically, I just want my child to live a peaceful life, so I'm sorry. At the same time, thank you for your praise of my child. Qin Yiru didn't want Yun Jian to be a model or enter the entertainment industry. Chapter 758. Yun Jian kept quiet because she knew that Qin Yiru and Ce would reject the offer on her behalf. Yun Jian had no intention of entering the entertainment industry either. Slaying God, the top secret agent in the international secret agent ranking, was going to compete with the big shots in showbiz? If word got out and Yun Jian's old friends heard about it, wouldn't they be laughing their heads off? Zhao Jingmin panicked when he heard that. In spite of it, he did not want to let go of such a good seedling like Yun Jian, so he came up with a new way to persuade the girl. We're no longer in a feudal society. Children should have their own opinions. What if your child wants to do it if you reject it like this? Aren't you going to ask for her opinion? As he spoke, Zhao Jingmin looked at Yun Jian. It was obvious that Zhao Jingmin had completely forgotten what Ce had said just now. Perhaps to Zhao Jingmin, Ce was scary, but he would do anything to achieve his goal for his job. Moreover, although people nowadays thought that actors were just entertainers and were at the bottom of society, this was not the case for children. Nowadays, the new generation of young people had already regarded some actors as their idols. However, there were also people from the older generation who looked down on actors. Therefore, Zhao Jingmin thought that Qin Yiru might not know, but a young student like Yun Jian should know, right? After all, it was such a great opportunity that some people did not even have the chance to enter the entertainment industry. Qin Yiru knew what Yun Jian was thinking, but since Zhao Jingmin asked, Qin Yiru asked Yun Jian a question out of courtesy. Xiao Jian, go ahead, Qin Yiru told Yun Jian. After Qin Yiru shifted her gaze to Yun Jian, the rest of the group shifted their gaze to Yun Jian as well. Zhao Jingmin was brimming with confidence. After all, youngsters nowadays who were slightly attractive wanted to enter the entertainment industry. On the other hand, the older generation ostracized actors. To put it bluntly, a talent scout like Zhao Jingmin was looking for such a pure and innocent girl. Young girls who didn't know anything were their targets. They were the ones who were easily deceived. After all, one could become an idol and dazzle in the entertainment industry. Zhao Jingmin had taken advantage of this to trick many innocent girls. Zhao Jingmin did not believe that a girl as pretty as Yun Jian would not want to enter the entertainment industry. I don't want to. These two simple words summed up his decision. Yun Jian's reply killed Zhao Jingmin's idea. Okay. Zhao Jingmin appeared to be very disappointed. Before Zhao Jingmin could finish his words, however, Ce's hand was already holding Yun Jian's hand as they went to the changing room. Hey, where are you going? Qin Yiru stuck her head out to ask. To change, Ce glanced at Yun Jian's wedding gown and replied to Qin Yiru. It was because of this wedding gown that they got into trouble, so he wanted her to change out of it. Her beauty was only for him to see. This child? Qin Yiru could hear Ce's angry tone and moved her lips slightly. Let them be. Let's hurry up and choose yours. Dong Yuan chuckled and pulled Qin Yiru to continue trying on the wedding gown. Zhao Jingmin, who stood where he was, watched Ce pull Yun Jian into the changing room with his own eyes, completely ignoring it. Zhao Jingmin clenched his fists in an unnoticeable spot and gritted his teeth in hatred. Neither he nor his company would let go of such a beauty. He would absolutely not stop. Chapter 759. Yun Jin only realized what had happened after Ce pulled her into the changing room. How was she going to change now that he had followed her in? Moreover, the wedding gown came with its own bra. She had removed her bra when she was wearing it. If she were to change in front of Ce, wouldn't she be completely naked except for her lower body? I'm going to change now. Get out, Yun Jin said as she pushed Ce. Ce admitted that he was indeed interested in Yun Jin, but he wasn't that horny. Moreover, his woman would be his forever. She couldn't escape from him. Ce curved his lips slightly. He turned and walked out of the changing room with a smile and stood at the door. Ce only held Yun Jin's hand again after she had changed and walked out of the changing room. Would you like to buy this wedding gown? The attendant at the side took out the wedding gown that Yun Jin had just worn and arranged it neatly before she turned to ask Ce and Yun Jin. Yes. Ce's thin lips moved. His eyes were fixed on Yun Jin the entire time, but his words were directed at the attendant. The attendant immediately went to pack the wedding gown after hearing his words. I don't need it now, Yun Jin couldn't help but say. She was 16 years old and was only in her 3rd year of middle school. If she had gotten married earlier, it would have been fine. However, based on the current situation, she really didn't need this wedding gown. After all, even if they were going to get married, it was still too early to talk about it. Moreover, she had accompanied Qin Yiru to buy a wedding gown today. In the end, she had gotten involved and picked one before Qin Yiru. You need it? After you buy it, you can only wear it for me to see. Ce looked at Yun Jin. His sharp eyebrows and starry eyes seemed to be able to speak. Yun Jin pursed her lips when she heard this. A slight blush appeared on her cheeks, but on the surface, her expression did not change at all. She was very calm and composed. Ce's words made some of the women in the store blush, even though she wasn't talking to any of them. What about this? How about this one? It's not tight and I think it fits me well. At this moment, the door of another dressing room opened and Qin Yiru walked out in a floor-length wedding dress. Qin Yiru had put on weight before, but now her figure had improved a lot. When Qin Yiru put on the wedding dress and walked out of the dressing room, everyone's eyes lit up. The wedding gown accentuated Qin Yiru's elegance. The floor-length hemline was very long, and the wedding dress looked as if it was decorated with diamonds. It shone brightly from afar. Qin Yiru's skin was very good, and Yun Jin most likely looked like her, except that Qin Yiru looked slightly fatter than Yun Jin. However, if Qin Yiru slimmed down, she wouldn't look old even if she was middle-aged. Therefore, this sparkling wedding dress looked very elegant on Qin Yiru. Everyone present could not help but take a few more glances. Wow, this one looks good. Yiru will take this one. Dong Yuan saw this and immediately ran to Qin Yiru's side to look at Qin Yiru a few times. Slim down a little more. Those who didn't know when you got married might think that you're a young lady in your early 20s. We'll take this one. Dong Yuan said. When Qin Yiru heard this, she smiled and looked at Yun Jin and Ce. Mom, it looks good. We'll take this one, Yun Jin said. Very good. Even Ce gave the highest praise. Chapter 760. Mo Sen pay the bill. Upon hearing Dong Yuan say that Qin Yiru would marry Yun Jin as soon as she was happy, Ce's thin lips moved as he hurriedly spoke. The corners of Mo Sen's mouth twitched. Young master, you weren't such a proactive person in the past. However, Mo Sen still didn't say anything as he walked over to pay for the 2 sets of wedding gowns. In addition to a pure white wedding gown, a wedding gown would also be required. Of course, some families that weren't rich enough wouldn't even buy a wedding gown. They would only have a traditional red wedding gown. Although Mo's son had already bought all the stores in the United Luenmai shopping center, including the goods in the stores, he still needed Manager Yang to negotiate with the merchants of the entire United Luenmai shopping center. After signing a contract, he would finally transfer it out. There were still many steps in the process. Of course, Ce didn't lack the money. He couldn't wait, so he naturally paid the bill first. Moreover, if there was one less item here, it meant that Manager Yang would refund him more money. The two had nothing to do with each other. By the time Qin Yiru changed out of the wedding gown and had it packed by the waiter, it was already 3 in the afternoon. Time passed very quickly. In addition, Qin Yiru had tried on many wedding gowns in the beginning, so it took time to change into a wedding gown. Naturally, time passed very quickly. Yun Jian and the others also realized that Zhao Jingmin, who claimed to be a talent scout, had already left. Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan naturally thought that Zhao Jingmin had given up on exploring Yunjian. Thus, the two of them carried the wedding gowns they had bought and walked home excitedly. Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan walked in front, holding hands as they talked, while Ce and Yunjian followed behind. Mo Sun followed at the back alone. After passing through the bustling and crowded downtown, it was already around 3:30 p.m. when they reached home. Qin Yiru went to prepare dinner as soon as she reached home. Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya were still having fun upstairs. When Yunjian and the others reached home, Lan Su had just helped Adam walk home from outside the house. "Slow down, slow down, slow down. My legs." Adam complained as he was supported by Lan Su as they walked back into the house. Mo Sun, who was standing in the distance, saw this and ran out to help Adam without saying anything. "Let me do it," Mo Sun said to Lan Su, and then he took over from Lan to help Adam. "Yes." Lan Su nodded. If one looked closely, one would see that her forehead was covered in a dense line of sweat. Lan Su really did not know how to serve others. She had always been served by others, and this was the first time she had to support a man like this from a walk in the park. Adam swung his slender hand and placed it on Mo Sun's shoulder. Mo Sun and Adam were about the same height. Both of them were about 1.8 meters tall. Although Lan Su's height was considered quite tall among girls, she was still half a head shorter than Adam. Therefore, after Adam put his hand on Mo Sun's shoulder, he clearly felt a lot more relaxed. Thinking like this, Adam couldn't help but tease Lan Su. "Phew, this is tall enough. You're short. I can't even stretch my hand and I have to bend my back to walk." "You." Lan Su was angered by Adam's words. "You still want to hit me? I'm a patient." Adam smiled mischievously, and pulled his handsome mouth that looked a bit dandy when he smiled. Lan Su really wanted to beat Adam up, but she quickly remembered that Adam's injuries were for her, so she endured it. Chapter 761. Yunjian could not help curling her lips at the sight. "Ah, you're all here. We're all here." Just as Adam limped into the room with his hand on Ma Sun's shoulder, a mature and steady male voice suddenly rang out. Yunjian turned to look and saw Gu Junjian entering the house before he could even change out of his military uniform. "I heard that you guys bought wedding gowns? How was it? Did you find anything you like?" Gu Junjian asked as he removed his jacket and placed it on the stool beside the dining table. "I bought it for Yiru. It's on the sofa. Take a look. I picked it out for Yiru. Yiru looks gorgeous in it." Dong Ruan was acquainted with Gu Junjian because of Qin Yiru. Although they didn't have a good relationship, Dong Ruan still joked with Gu Junjian. "Okay, let me take a look," Gu Junjian replied and took out the wedding gown on the stool. "Xiao Jin, you're going to self-study tonight. Come eat first," Qin Yiru beckoned Yunjian. "Wash your hands. There are still 2 dishes left." "Let's wait at the table," Qin Yiru said with a wide grin. "Sure, we're waiting for the chef. Don't make us wait too long." Dong Ruan replied to Qin Yiru with a grin. By the time Qin Yiru served the remaining 2 dishes, everyone was already seated around the table. "The marriage application I submitted to the higher-ups last time has been approved," Gu Junjian said as he ate his rice. Although she knew that the marriage application was bound to be approved, Qin Yiru could not help exclaiming in delight, "Really?" Gu Junjian nodded and said, "I'm going to treat my comrades to dinner next Saturday. Xiao Yi will be there too." Yun Yi was from the high school and usually went home once a week. He would definitely be home on Saturday night. When they heard that Gu Junjian was going to treat them to a meal, everyone expressed their silent approval. "Next Saturday? I'm going back to work next Saturday. I wish you all good food and drinks, haha," Dong Ruan immediately said. Qin Yiru also expressed that it was a pity that Dong Ruan could not come. However, knowing that Dong Ruan was usually busy, Qin Yiru felt relieved. As he spoke, Gu Junjian suddenly thought of something. He turned around and said to Qin Yiru, who was sitting next to him, "I applied for leave tomorrow. Tomorrow I can take you to prepare for the wedding." "Okay." Qin Yiru's smile widened when she heard this. Yunjian sat to the side and occasionally chatted with Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya. Meanwhile, Ce sat next to Yunjian and silently put food in Yunjian's bowl. Yunjian also ate all the food that Ce put in her bowl. It was almost 4:30 p.m. when Yunjian finished all the food in her bowl. "Mom, I'm going to school." Yunjian stood up and said to Qin Yiru, "I'll send her off." Ce also put down her bowl and chopsticks. Yunjian ran upstairs and took her bag downstairs. Ce lazily put one hand in his pocket and walked out with Yun Jian. Since it was still early and the villa was not far from school, Yun Jian and Ce walked there. Let me do it. As soon as they walked out of the villa, Ce took Yun Jian's bag and helped her to carry it. Yun Jian did not refuse. Her bag was not heavy. When they reached the school gate, Ce returned her bag and said very ambiguously, "I'll wait for you to come back tonight." Okay. Yun Jian smiled and took her bag. Ce's appearance attracted the attention of many passing girls. However, Ce did not stop at any other girl except for Yun Jian. After Ce left, Yun Jian put on her bag and planned to walk into school. Chapter 762. Before Yun Jian could turn around, Qin Sini had already pounced on her and hugged her shoulder affectionately. "Emin," Yun Jian answered softly and asked Qin Sini, "Where's Zhang Xiaofeng?" Zhang Xiaofeng and Qin Sini were cousins and both of them liked to tease each other. Yun Jian could not help being surprised that Zhang Xiaofeng was not around. His fever hasn't gone down today. I told him not to come," Qin Sini said before hugging Yun Jian and inching closer to Yun Jian with a grin. "Xiao Jian, I saw the handsome guy who sent you to school just now. I even heard what he said," Qin Sini said with a grin. She then pouted playfully and emphasized her tone, repeating what Ce had said to Yun Jian. "I'll wait for you to come back tonight." "Ah, that's what he said. I think you guys are having an affair." Qin Sini did not mean anything else. She was just playful and liked to imitate others. In spite of it, Yun Jian blushed at once when she heard it. "Wow, that's unbelievable. Xiao Jian, you're blushing?" Qin Sini exclaimed in surprise when she caught the blush on Yun Jian's cheeks. Qin Sini then regained her composure and went to Yun Jian's ear to ask as she pulled Yun Jian into the school. "Xiao Jian, tell me. How far have you guys progressed? When did it start?" Not only was Qin Sini interested in Yun Jian's gossip, even Zhang Xiaofeng and Ling Yichen were intrigued. Yun Jian was speechless. "Aya, tell me. Qin Sini pulled Yun Jian to the school coquettishly. Seeing that Yun Jian was silent, Qin Sini began to make guesses. "Did you and him do it?" Even if Yun Jian had not experienced certain things, she could guess a little from what Qin Sini said. She coughed and as if to ease the awkwardness or dispel Qin Sini's curiosity, she replied, "No." Qin Sini was speechless. Jian, has anyone ever told you that you're very direct?" Being pestered by Qin Sini all the way, it was time for the evening self-study session when they returned to the classroom. Spring had come quietly but the campus at night was still chilly. The weekend self-study session was just self-study and the homeroom teacher did not have any special instructions. However, there was one thing that the teacher could not forget. The homeroom teacher, Miss Yu, stood on the podium and felt the eyes of the class. She said, "The winter break is over and most of you have settled down. It's been more than a week since school started and it's the second semester of the third year of junior high now. This means that the middle school exams are coming soon. Everyone must work hard for your goals." When it came to goals, it was nothing more than which school to get into for the middle school exams. The best high school in Longmen City was East Senior High School and most of the students were working hard to get into it. Miss Yu left after that, leaving the classroom for the students to study by themselves. Usually, whatever the homeroom teacher said would cause a commotion in the class. The students would have many topics to talk about as the teacher spoke. Take Qin Sini for example. Qin Sini, who was sitting in front of Yun Jian, could not help turning to look at Yun Jian who was sitting behind her when she heard what the teacher said and asked, Jian, have you thought about which high school you want to get into?" "I want to get into East Senior High School but I can't meet the cutoff score." "You're so good, you can definitely get into East Senior High School." Yun Jian's results were first in the 5-school joint entrance exam, so everyone's ears perked up when Qin Sini asked. Chapter 763. Yun Jian's words did not mean that she wanted to go, but that she would go. She would go to the military academy in Min City. The fundamental difference between wanting and knowing was that wanting was a possibility. Knowing was something that had already been confirmed. Hence, the students who pricked up their ears to hear which school Yun Jian was going to go to were all stunned. Sitting on Yun Jian's left was a fat man named Zhang Jian. When Zhang Jian heard Yun Jian's words, he immediately burst into laughter. Her classmates snapped out of their daze and finally reacted. The word, disbelief, was written all over their faces. After Zhang Jian finished laughing, he held his breath and could not help but laugh. As he laughed, he said to Yun Jian, his fat body trembling, "Ah, are you trying to kill me? Yun Jian, with your skinny body you want to go to the military academy? Don't make me laugh my head off." Who would dare to accept you in a place like the military academy? That's right, Yunjian, your grades are good, but it's the military academy. The military academy requires people with superb physical fitness to get in. Do you think the military academy will accept just anyone? As soon as Zhang Jian spoke, someone immediately chimed in. I think it's more practical for you to apply for the first senior high school. With your grades, it's more than enough for you to get in. When the application form for the high school entrance exam comes out, Yunjian, don't be stupid enough to apply for the military academy. Otherwise, you won't even be able to get into the first senior high school. Yunjian was the top scorer in the 5-school joint examination. At the same time, she naturally became the role model of the entire class. When they heard that Yunjian wanted to apply for the military academy, everyone present could not help but advise Yunjian against it. After all, other than Qin Sini, no one present knew that Yunjian was an advanced special forces soldier. Apart from those present, a large group of teachers in the office also knew that Yunjian had joined the special forces. After all, Gu Junjian had personally come to the school to invite Yunjian to join the advanced special forces. It had happened in the office back then. Yunjian also agreed to join in the presence of many teachers in the office. If you don't know what to say, then say it. Qin Sini immediately stood out to defend Yunjian. Although it was the evening self-study period, everyone present had already started chatting. Unless the homeroom teacher came back, no one would be able to calm down. Of course Jian can get into the military academy. If she can't, you guys won't be able to. Qin Sini declared confidently. When the third year of junior high was about to graduate, someone would come to the graduating class to select students with good physical fitness to go to the military academy. The boys were summoned to the military academy. The girls were recruited to become air stewardesses in the future. In 1999, ordinary people could not afford to fly. If they went to military school, they would be assigned jobs after graduation. Therefore, these two schools were undoubtedly the places that the students in the class yearned for. However, there were only a few people in the entire Dragon Gate No. 1 high school who could be selected. Qin Sini, why are you so confident that she can get into the military academy? Haha, I don't think she can even reach the lowest threshold of the military academy with her tiny frame. Zhang Jian continued with a flick of his plump body. You. Qin Sini was angered by what Zhang Jian said. Chapter 764. After this male voice was heard, everyone present was a little stunned. They then turned around to see a figure appear at the back door of the classroom. Zhang Xiaofeng was holding onto the door frame at the back of the classroom. Everyone was stunned when they saw Zhang Xiaofeng appear out of nowhere. As their homeroom teacher had mentioned earlier that Zhang Xiaofeng had taken the day off due to a fever, the class was a little stunned to see Zhang Xiaofeng, who was supposed to be at home, here. However, that was not the only thing that stunned them. It was what Zhang Xiaofeng said. Zhang Xiaofeng said that Yunjian was an advanced special forces soldier? That was not the point. The point was that Yunjian was Team Monarch slashing God. What kind of joke was that? Team Monarch had now become the idol of countless youths, especially the boys in school who looked up to them. The reason was simple. Team Monarch was a team formed by advanced special forces soldiers who were around the same age as them. Most importantly, the 7 members of Team Monarch had all become members of the Advanced Special Forces. Advanced Special Forces. Even some veteran Special Forces soldiers who had been in the military for decades could not become Advanced Special Forces soldiers. How old were the 7 members of Team Monarch? They were already members of the Advanced Special Forces. However, the most terrifying person in Team Monarch was Slashing God. Slashing God was a legendary figure. It was said that the internationally renowned Inferno Ring, an organization that was second only to Hun Group and Kosha mercenaries, was annihilated by Slashing God, who led the Zhe province army and joined forces with Hun Group and Kosha mercenaries. Rumors about Slashing God were endless. All the boys in the classroom had heard of Team Monarch's Slashing God. Most of them had even set Slashing God as their goal and role model to move forward. At this moment, Zhang Xiaofeng, who appeared out of nowhere, said that Yunjian was the Slashing God whom the boys had been idolizing recently. How could they not be shocked? Team Monarch Slashing God? Is Yunjian? Zhang Jian was the first to react. He stuttered as he looked at Zhang Xiaofeng, who suddenly appeared at the back door of the classroom. His beady eyes that could barely open widened. As the strongest fatty in class, Zhang Jian was no doubt the number 1 fan of Team Monarch's Slashing God. Back then, Zhang Jian searched for information about Team Monarch's Slashing God. Although he did not know who was Slashing God, he managed to find quite a lot of information about her. At that time, Zhang Jian was still bragging in class and even said that he wanted to become someone as powerful as the killing god. When he mocked Yun Jian for wanting to go to the military school just now, Zhang Jian thought that he knew slashing god very well. He even thought of himself as slashing god, so he spoke to Yun Jian in disdain. Now, however, Zhang Xiaofeng was telling them that Yun Jian was the legendary slashing god of Team Monarch, the legendary character. Not a single student in the class wasn't surprised. The classroom was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. While the class was still in shock, Zhang Xiaofeng returned to his seat. "Didn't you say you're sick? Why are you back?" Chen Sini looked at Zhang Xiaofeng in surprise. Chapter 765. Good job. Even Chen Sini, who had been bickering with Zhang Xiaofeng, could not help but give Zhang Xiaofeng a thumbs up. Hee. Zhang Xiaofeng could not help but scratch his hair after being praised by Chen Sini out of the blue. He had never been praised by Chen Sini like that before. Zhang Xiaofeng and Chen Sini were cousins. Both of them had been at loggerheads ever since they were young. You're really slashing god? At that moment, Zhang Jian's weak voice was heard. The question was directed at Yun Jian. Yun Jian had been sitting in her seat since the beginning and did not look at anyone. She was holding a black pen in her hand and was twirling it leisurely. All of a sudden she felt the eyes of the entire class on her. She raised her head slightly and saw Zhang Jian's face suddenly appear in front of her. Yun Jian had no intention of hiding anything. To Yun Jian. If others did not ask, she would not say. If others asked, she would not hide it either. Unless it was something fundamental, such as her rebirth. Yun Jian replied softly. However, it was this weak reply that caused an uproar in the class. Oh my god, is this for real? Yun Jian from our class is slashing god from Team Monarch. Oh my god. A few days before the new year, one of my relatives came to me and bragged that he had seen Team Monarch's red flame. I was so envious at that time. I didn't expect Team Monarch's strongest slashing god to be in our class. A series of shocked and terrified voices were heard. For a moment, the entire class was in an uproar. At that moment, the students in the next class were unusually shocked. What's wrong with the students in the next class? Why is it so noisy? At the same time in the same class, Zhang Jian changed his arrogant tone and looked at Yun Jian weakly. At the same time he asked Yun Jian, Can you accept me as your disciple? I also want to learn from you like Zhang Xiaofeng. From calling him by his name to addressing him respectfully, Zhang Jian's tone carried a hint of pleading. Learn from Team Monarch's killing god. The students who had treated Yun Jian with disdain earlier all followed Zhang Jian's lead. Me too. Yun Jian, I also want to acknowledge you as my master. Me too. For a moment the whole class started shouting like the wind. Go. She's my master. You didn't believe in her ability at first. She won't accept you. Zhang Xiaofeng stood out and shouted. Zhang Xiaofeng, step aside. It's up to Yun Jian to decide if she wants to accept it or not. One of the boys said confidently. I won't. However, just when the whole class was at its peak, Yun Jian's voice was heard. When the boys in the class heard Yun Jian's words, they instantly quieted down. What? Zhang Jian asked, unwilling to give up. Because I don't accept trash. Yun Jian's words completely destroyed everyone's thoughts. I'm not trash. Zhang Xiaofeng almost jumped in joy when he heard Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian's words were her own intention. Zhang Xiaofeng had a good bone structure. With time he would definitely become a talent in the future. However, Yun Jian had also observed the boys in the class. None of them could compare to Zhang Xiaofeng in terms of ability. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.